This is Steve Downs, the voice of Master Chief, Spartan 117. Welcome to Quality Time, the KO Koala Entertainment Podcast. Anthony and Skylar will take it from here. Master Chief, out, out, out.
Hello and welcome to Quality Time, the KO Koala Entertainment Podcast. I'm Skylar Sokol.
I'm Anthony Nicolosi.
I'm Sean Stevens.
Joshua Broncoli.
And we got the whole crew today for our special, finally, long time coming Elden Ring podcast. We had two options. Either wait for me, Josh, and Sean to beat it, or do it in 10 years when Anthony beats it, and we chose to do it now. So we're going to go through some various aspects of the game, basically try and give you our overall impressions, talk about the design, and hopefully some more, like, gamey elements than maybe you would get from a normal review. Sean out here looking like pale as a tarnished in this view, like Sean cosplaying right now.
I'm a wretch in real life
Yes.
as well as in
You
Elden
want me
Ring.
to look like a tarnished? I can make it happen. Hold on. While Skylar's
Imagine
Whoa!
Anthony actually beating a game, says Evan in the chat. What a wow.
Hey, I beat Doom. Hey.
He did. All right.
Shut
So Anthony has played a little bit of Elden Ring. And hopefully we'll be beating a boss eventually. But for now, we have him here to be our moderator for our discussion. So, Anthony, take it away.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, hey, to be clear, that guy with the shield outside of the
Stormville
where I met
Castle.
what was the name of that lady who I didn't do her quest and you told me I should and then I got a
Ronnie.
horse?
Ronnie.
Yeah, I did not go for Ronnie. Yes. Pro tip. Talk to Ronnie, get the horse from Ronnie, no matter
This
how
is
much
not
you
a
don't
tips
wanna talk.
podcast. This is a review.
Ronnie doesn't give you the horse, but yes.
Yeah, Ronnie
yes,
doesn't give you
Melania.
the horse.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
It's
Well,
fine. It's fine.
I that is about the extent of my knowledge. So I think that is a good segue into the first question, boys. I think the audience needs to know what's everybody's experience with previous FromSoft games. Everyone just heard my experience. I don't have any, and I beat one guy with the shield. How about you guys?
I've played, I think, every FromSoft game, at least some, including even the original Demon Souls on fucking Xbox or whatever. But I've never beaten one until Elden Ring. And not necessarily because they were too hard or anything. I just would get bored and like churn and just like decide I wasn't interested in playing it anymore. The one I'd played the most before Elden Ring was Sekiro, which I did have a lot of hours in, like 30 something, I think. Or maybe 20 something, I don't know. But that's definitely one I would consider going back to and finishing. But yeah, Dark Souls 3 would be my second most and just going downhill from there. I never played the Demon Souls remake, but other than that, I have dabbled in all of them and quit all of them. So my opinion is from someone who literally quit every other FromSoft game to say like I didn't like them enough to play, and now
You're a
one I beat the whole
FromSoft
time.
Churner.
I'm a
You
churner
came in.
until now.
Okay.
Reborn.
I'll keep that in mind for later. How about you, Josh? Okay, so I'm saving Sean for last. on this one.
So I played Dark Souls 1. I got up to Seath the Scaleless, and I rage quit on Seath the Scaleless. Because there's this mechanic where you get cursed, and you permanently lose half your HP until you get uncursed. But the thing to get uncursed is like at the other side of the world
Yep.
from where you are. And when you're cursed, you can't like use humanity. You can't you can't do the multiplayer. And it just was like I just had no way of like I rage quit basically. So yeah, that's all of my.
And that's the only
Honestly
one.
fair.
Just Dark
Honestly
Souls
fair.
1? Just Dark Souls 1 and Elden Ring.
Dark Souls 1. I actually own all of them
Okay.
in Steam, but I've only played Dark Souls 1.
Sean?
Okay, Sean.
So I have played every single From Software game besides the original Demon Souls, but I have played the remake, and I think I've played each of them at least 3 times. except for the remake, 'cause that's the newest one. I've only played that one twice.
Have you do you speedrun Souls games?
No, I've never done speedruns. I was thinking about doing speedruns of Sekiro, but I just play them. It's like I usually play one of their games at least once a year. It's like kind of my cadence these days.
Okay.
So, like I played Demon Souls remake last year because that's when it came out, and then I beat Elden Ring this year, and then after Elden Ring, I beat Sekiro like 7 times the
Well,
last
so
2 weeks.
you are a FromSoft super fan, clearly, or there's something wrong with you in the brain.
I'm a super fan. I love all their games. I mean, I started rage quitting their games, so I thought they were too hard on like the 360, and then right before Dark Souls 3 came out, I rebeat Dark Souls 2, beat Dark Souls 3, then beat Dark Souls 1, then Sekiro. I just kind of went nuts. So yeah, I love their games.
So then perfect segue into the next one. I'm going to start with you on this one, Sean. Give your short initial review of Elden Ring. You FromSoft super fan, short initial review.
Few sentences. That's it.
I think Elden Ring is the most accessible and overall objectively the best game the best Souls game they've released that exists in the market.
Cool.
Skylar, would you agree?
I think that Elden Ring is definitely the most accessible Souls game. For me, it's the most fun and interesting. Albeit if you can get past the horrible layer of learning curve and obtuse UX and choices.
Right.
Okay, I'll have a question about that later. Okay. Joshmond, you beat this one. Hey,
I did beat this one. Yes. I think part of the reason I was able to beat it was because the structure is so fundamentally different from like Dark Souls 1. That I think is one of the big reasons that it is, because I wouldn't necessarily say that it's easier in terms of like
You only have a few sentences here, Josh.
Oh, sorry. But the structure of the game is set up so that it's more, you have more choice in what you do.
Cool.
And
that's good.
I will say, overall, sorry, we sort of only compared it in this little section to previous FromSoft games, but like, and I guess that's fine for the start. At the end, we'll say our overall rating.
That's my like, I don't know, that was my objective review. My subjective review is not the same.
Okay. Well, okay, let's get through a few more formalities then so that we can hear your bullshit hot takes as a FromSoft super fan that you apparently have or are alluding to. What builds did you guys go for? Sean, I know you started as a red, Sean, because we all voted on it and you did it.
Yeah, so I will say just real quick, so Wretch is like the classic, if you're a fan, right, you always pick the character that's objectively shit, just to make it like a little bit harder, right? And I always do, my favorite build is just 2 hands, the biggest weapons in the game that I can find, and just whack shit. So I did 2 giant swords and I just smack stuff. That's it. It was great.
Sounds like a solid strat. That was the build. That was the strat throughout the game for you.
Yeah, I did that the beginning of the game. I was doing a big sword and a shield until I got enough stats to hold 2 swords because it took me a little bit to build up to that. And then, I mean, it's my favorite. I like it because it's simple. It's just you dodge and then you hit them. But the thing is, after 100 hours, it does get a bit stale. It's pretty samey, right?
Okay.
But I enjoy it. Yeah.
Okay.
Do it again.
Josh, what was your build?
Did mixed strength int build. So my main weapon was the Meteoric Ore Katana, which scales with both strength and int. So that was, and I had the benefit of being able to use a sword, and I also had a staff, so I could use spells, which are very useful. I wouldn't
pros
say
and
that
cons, Josh. I mean, you gave a few pros right there. What about like anything you wish you would have done differently on the build wise?
I mean, my build, I don't know. Maybe I would have. No, I like my build, honestly. If I were to do a different build, I would do a completely different build. I wouldn't do a similar build, just for variance sake, you know?
Okay. Skylar?
I did as close to a pure int build as I could for as much of the game as possible. To me, magic was by far the most interesting thing. It held the most variety because, there's like a ton of different spells. And this game really shined with that because like I got better and better spells over the whole course of the game. The big thing that inspired me was after beating Renala, where you get her moon spell that requires 70 int, but you're like not even close to that shit. So I was like, fuck it, I'm getting enough int to use this. And so by the end of the game, I would like throw a moon at someone, shoot a beam at that. Like, it was sick. And then eventually I also, once I got the Dark Moon Greatsword from the Rani side quest, I added that to the build. And I used to use a staff and shield. And then in Melania, in order to beat her, I ended up having to switch everything so that I could use staff in left hand and sword in right hand. And that's how I did the rest of the game, was Dark Moon Greatsword in one hand and staff in the other. It was so fun. I don't even know. It would be hard for me to want to go back and do anything else unless it was maybe a faith build, which would sort of end up being similar, just because I had so much fun using the magic.
So I just wanted to ask too, so how, just for people who don't know how you switch spells, is you have to like press up on the D-pad to swap between your spells, and there's no like weapon spell wheel. How was that for you? Was that annoying, or was it like muscle memory, or?
For me, it was fine. It just like I'm really good at multitasking. So like that kind of stuff does not bother me. But for someone who is not, I think it would be horrible. Like it's crazy. And we'll talk about this later when we get to UI UX decisions. But the way that bottom left menu works in the game is insane to me.
Yeah, that's why I do whack builds, because it makes it so I don't have to interact with it, really.
Yeah, like, and granted, I hate games that, like, you hold a button and it freezes everything and then you switch. I hate those, like, ones that pause. So, like, for this was great for me because it was all in real time, and it sort of just added another layer of, like, oh, shit, I gotta switch my spell while I dodge and all that. So that was fun for me, but I could totally see how for other people it would suck.
Yeah.
What did you think, Josh, experiencing that same thing?
The spell wheel was not like or the spell swapping didn't really bother me at all. I mean, I mainly kept to like 3 or 4 main spells that I would use, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I knew where they were. Like, I rotated through them. I knew, like, okay, if I'm at, Glintstone Shard or whatever, Swift Glintstone Shard, I know I'm like 2 away from like Enhanced Armament or whatever. Like,
Cool.
I know where the spells are if there's only a handful of them.
Right.
And I also did Wretch. Okay, having never played.
You haven't done it yet.
FromSoft
We'll see you beat a boss. then you can say you did Wretch.
I am a Wretch, and it's going. I'm not liking it.
I will be honest. Elden Ring is the worst game to do Wretch.
Agreed.
It's way better than the other games because you don't get armor in the beginning of Elden Ring.
And in this game, like, it's way more fun to be able to use the equipment you get early. And with Wretch, you have to grind in order to do any of that.
And the other games, you don't have to because the way it gives out the
right.
I just got a flail. There's maybe some potential fun to be found there, but yeah. If you've never played FromSoft, wouldn't recommend Wretch. It's kind of ass. That's all. That's my opinion. Let's keep rolling though. Shonald, gameplay overall, okay? How did you feel about the gameplay specifically? We're going to focus on like the combat and how you felt controlling your player in the combat. Actually, let's start with just combat. How'd you feel about the combat?
The combat is fine. I think the more Souls games I play from FromSoft, the more the combat just is kind of boring to me. Because the core of the combat is dodge an enemy and then you hit them. And that's pretty much it. Right. And obviously with like magic and you can parry, and they added a bunch of new mechanics, but like most people I would say would be dodging and then they're going to use a spell or hit him with a weapon. Right. And that's kind of all you do. But I mean, mechanically wise, it's very well done. It's responsive, attacks you out when you press the button. When you get hit, it's because you made a mistake, not because, you got input lagged or whatever. Right. So I think it's fine. I would like, I think it's just, I wouldn't want them to do the same type of combat system in their next game.
I think one of the most interesting things about the Dark Souls combat that sets it apart a lot from other games that I really came to enjoy in this game is the fact that when you commit to an action, you are committed to that action. And that's one thing that made magic really interesting in the game, is that you really had to pick, and I mean, you do have to do this with like heavy attacks with normal swords too. You really have to pick and choose your moments that you're attacking and doing things in combat much more than other games where you're very free to like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore, I'm just going to cancel this action and do something else. In Dark Souls and all these Souls like games, Elden Ring, you are committed once you do it. So when I want to throw a moon at someone, that spell takes like 5 seconds to cast, so like I have to know that I'm in a situation where it will complete. And so I think that the knowledge that requires you to have in the fights is pretty interesting.
Flip side of that, there's definitely like there's this weird buffering that sometimes when you like try to dodge and you get hit by attack before the animation happens, you dodge after you get hit.
Yep.
Yeah, there is
Which
some
I
annoying
hate.
buffering
I
stuff.
hate that.
Yeah, there's also situations where like you hit a spell and then you like hit another spell, but then you decide not to, but it still happened. There's like a ton of weird stacking situations that do happen. They're rare, but they are annoying when they happen for sure.
That's what I felt like what was happening to me. And
That was not happening to you. You just didn't understand how the mechanics worked because your club has a 3-hit combo attack, and I think you kept thinking that it was one you could stop attacking after each of them, but you couldn't.
meaning if you tap swing 3 times, you've committed to the 3-hit combo.
No, your
You
thing
get in
was
the
a
middle of their
built-in
dodge.
3-hit combo off one button without hitting it 3 times.
Really?
It's when
Yeah.
you so it's, when you use the scream thing that puts you in the stance, that makes all your
Yeah.
heavy attacks a 3-hit combo with one button.
Yeah, it wasn't necessarily just with the scream though. So I'm not sure. I felt like when I committed to something, I had to wait for that to finish before doing the next thing.
That's
You know what I mean?
100%
Whatever
true.
it
That's
was.
the whole
Yeah,
point.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's what I
and
was
there
saying.
was
That's
just
what
a
I
couple
think
of
is really
times where-
interesting.
Right.
It makes it a lot. It's really methodical, right? It's like generally for me when I get into a boss, it's like I'm not attacking at all. I'm just dodging for a little bit until I figure out when the safe openings are,
Right.
and then
Yep.
you're
Yeah,
just trading, right?
There's no canceling your attack animations.
Which is honestly
Right.
like
Dodge.
more immersive in my mind. Like it felt more. It just feels like you have to be more in tune with what's going on.
Yeah, you
Yeah, that's
definitely you have to
interesting.
play more careful.
And you have to know how long it takes to swing your weapon, right? How long
Right.
it takes to cast your spell, what the distance you need,
Yeah, I'm not a Elden Ring player. I'm not a Souls player. These games are not attractive to me. But it was just to the comment. It's very not immersive to me. It's
Well,
opposite. It's because
I talk to me again when you beat the first boss, and I think you'll have a different opinion.
I got a feel for the system after I started to beat a couple people.
I don't think so.
No, I don't care what you say. When the game's controls pull me out of my intention, right?
No, this is part of the learning curve that I was talking about. You are not. You're still like here on the learning curve that you need to get to like here. That's a big problem with the game, and I think only once you get near the top of it do these things start feeling enjoyable. Because like I agree with you. When I first started, this is why I've quit like every Dark Souls game because I think it feels like shit, and I had to commit to learning it, and once I did, then it feels interesting.
Yeah, but like to be clear, it's not like it was like it felt. It just I wanted it to be responsive from the perspective of like when I swing and then I decide to dodge, I want to dodge. I want like that cancel there. But once you start to feel out the rules of the game, and because like side note, as I was playing, I was like, what is compelling about this to people, right? When I hear examples of like situations like Josh found himself in where you have to slog all the way across the map to find a thing to uncurse you and like come back, I'm like, why do people like these games? That sounds terrible. What else?
Anybody likes that mechanic?
Yeah, no one likes
but
that.
like nobody. Yeah, but like people somehow, I don't know if look past is the right word, but they play the game anyway in lieu of like frustrations.
No,
Like
I mean, there's a good point.
right?
Like when I was playing the Demon Souls remake, I remember I'm walking through like a dark area and I fall in a hole in the ground and die that you can't see because it's so dark. And for you, Anthony, you'd be like, that's fucking bullshit. For me, it's like classic Dark Souls. I guess I'll just go through it again, right? It's like I don't even think about it. It's
Well,
just
one
like
thing I
game.
was kind of picking up on, even with the little bit I was playing, is it did feel like there were rules and they were strict. And if you played within the rules and accomplished something, it felt very intentional. Like you really did beat the thing. You know what I mean? Like it was completely a product of you reading the rules and then executing the mechanics in such a way that you win. That I can see being very satisfying to people. You know, like
Yes.
having a very
All right. Moving on.
Yeah.
So, enemy design is next. So, what do you guys think about the enemy design? Because I know, Sean, you have some strict opinions about the way they design the enemies.
There's two ways. So obviously the design from software nails it with the enemy variety, right? The amount of individual specific enemies in the game and the amount of bosses, even though they do reuse a lot of them, is nuts, right? There's a crazy amount. For me, I think just based off the previous games, and even after playing Sekiro, which I think is their fastest game, these enemies are nuts. I think they're nuts. Like the openings they have for you to attack them is a lot smaller than all the other games, and a lot of their combos are really, really long. Like I'm thinking of Morgott, the boss with the dragon arm, that guy. When he does that wind thing around him, that just hits you if you're close to him. It's just like stuff like that. A lot of bosses have that in this game.
Talking about
It's
Godric.
yes, you're right. Yeah, Godric, right? It's a lot of stuff like that. Like even Margit, like when I was fighting him level 1, you just don't get a lot of opportunities to whack bosses, I felt, in this game compared to their other ones. Because I played Dark Souls 3 a little bit after it too, and I was like, damn, this boss attacks me and I dodge and I can hit him for like, I got like 5 seconds, to do whatever I want. It was crazy.
I actually think, to me, this was one of the reasons I liked Elden Ring more. I've been thinking about this a lot because you expressed this before. I knew you had this opinion. I've been thinking about why this didn't bother me. I think it's because for a lot of games like this, and a lot of games with big bosses, they always feel like, oh, this is a boss with like 3 attacks, and if I learn the 3 patterns, then it's just like a patterned repeat kind of game. And Dark Souls is like that, but when the bosses are this complex with this many attacks and possible options, it was just way more interesting to me to have to learn to fight them. And so to me, the fact that they were nuts was actually a big positive. I really enjoyed that, and having to like find those small openings and figure it out. Granted, there were situations where it was really annoying where you're like, getting attacked for like 10 seconds straight and you literally have to just dodge the whole time. But I mean, if you were in a real fight with a real boss like this, that would probably be what would happen, right?
No, and when you say it like that, it makes sense to me. I mean, it's just something I'm used to. Right?
No, totally. It's very different.
It's just different. Yeah, and I mean, I didn't think that for me made the difficulty like insanely hard or anything. It was just, I was like, what the hell? It was like an enemy, because I'm used to like an enemy, they do like a slash, and then like an overhead slam, and it's like, okay, now I attack them, and then they would like swipe me, and it's like, what the hell? It's like that never happens. They do their big attack, and then they're exhausted and they're done. But
right. What'd you think about all that, Josh?
I mean, I didn't realize we were talking about like the fight design. I thought we were talking about like the character design.
We can do that after, but yeah.
After, yeah. In terms of the fight design, yeah, I agree with what you said. Like, it is a lot tighter. It's almost. I actually did talk to my brother a little bit about this, and it's almost like on the level of like a fighting game, where it's a lot more rhythmic and a lot more like pattern, like you're like almost like combos, right? Like where you're like avoiding combos.
Right. Yeah.
And it's a lot more like you are being really kind of like you need to know the rhythm of your inputs to a certain extent. So, you see the animation and you're like, now's when I dodge, right? And then because it's not like you dodge, and you're going to avoid all the attacks, because you have to time it right, and you don't have a lot of margin of error. So what it ends up being really fast paced, in my opinion.
And
I would say Elden Ring's the fastest. Yeah, like the fastest Souls game probably.
You liked that
in terms of the
Josh?
combat?
I like that. I mean, it does like. I think that it works because and this is where I'm going to compare it to Dark Souls 1 again, is that it works because you don't spend a long time getting back to the boss. Because
Yeah.
if you had to
Yeah.
spend a long time getting back to the boss, and then you were to die in 3 hits instantly because you mistimed an input, like that becomes a lot more punishing. But because of like Stakes of America, or because the bonfire is Site of Grace is really close, like it removes like the pain of the death a lot.
That was a huge difference for me in this game. You're absolutely right. That was one of the main reasons that I was way more compelled to stick with this game than I was with any previous FromSoft game. Was that they essentially for almost every fight in the game, Renala notwithstanding, removed the annoying run back.
Right. Yeah, there's 2. There's like Renala and what's his name? Malekith. There's like no enemies there, but it's like just kind of far away. You just like have to like walk. Yeah, but otherwise, yeah, it's no big deal.
No, I think that was like as far as the way they did the open world, which we'll talk about later. I think that was one of the best design choices they made in the entire game. Was the quantity of states of grace and then the addition of Stakes America as well. That's a really good point, Josh.
Yeah.
I think the boss design, though, Josh, if you want to talk about that, is sick as fuck. Like what the actual character designs are super cool. I mostly from just watching people. Obviously, I was watching several different streamers play through. It's like this like decayed fuckness to it. I mean, all the other Souls are kind of like that too. But I don't know. What'd you think? What'd you guys think in regards to that?
I had a really good FromSoft has a classic where it's like some of their games weren't as good. Like Dark Souls 3, people dub it as like every boss is dude in armor, right? Which it is. Elden Ring has a really good variety of dude in armor to fucking creepy dude to beast to
Mage
corrupted
lady
testicle sack, right? You know, that's like some of the designs, if you like actually would take the time to look at them, it's like, how do they come up with this shit? Like, I think my favorite boss design in the game is probably Rykard, because that was like nuts.
Great.
Yeah, it was like
that boss was crazy looking.
Phase 2 was like, oh yeah, oh my god, like of course, right? It was really awesome, but like even, you know, Margit, who's like maybe one of the more simple guys, like the cutscene, like he's like so hairy, you know? It's
and like phase 2 of Renala, so cool and unique.
Yeah, the arena's awesome. I really loved like Astel was like one of my favorite visual bosses, right? That like when I saw that boss, I was like, am I playing Bloodborne? You know?
Melania cutscene, second phase
cutscene.
that
shit
that's
was
like
nuts. Yeah,
I think that's like one of the best cutscenes that FromSoft
all the phase
has
2
ever done.
bosses transitions were sweet. They were all like, for me, like jaw dropping for the most part. Like Fire Giant, when he like, yeah, that's just awesome. They were all awesome.
Honestly, the only design that I like have a bone to pick with is Elden Beast, because I feel like compared to all the other ones, he's kind of like bland.
It was interesting that he was like that.
Yeah.
He wasn't like that crazy compared to like when you've
Like
already
the
seen
other
like Estelle,
things.
when you've seen like Estelle and even the like what are the
Falling Star beasts.
No, the fucking the big centipede guy that rides around, not Star Space.
Yeah,
really,
it's
the mini boss who's in the first area after you get out of the game. You open it with the stone sword keys, and he's at the bottom. What's that?
Oh,
boss?
you're talking about the tree thing.
Yeah, the tree thing.
Oh, like ulcerated tree spirit.
Yeah, even like that. That's sort of like along the Elden Beast line look as well. But yeah, I agree. The Elden Beast was like basically just the Princess Mononoke forest spirit.
Yeah, it was like, you know, space Loch Ness monster.
I mean, all his attacks were really cool, but I agree the overall design of the monster. I can see how you would think it was a little underwhelming for sure.
Yeah.
The other thing I kept thinking as watching these bosses transform into crazy shit and whatever, I think the one that I first thought this in was the boss where there's the two Godskin duo bros. One is skinny, one's fat as fuck. Yeah. There's an attack that the skinny guy has where he fucking eels out.
The stretching attack. Yeah, there's a lot of enemies who actually
and then his legs like suck back into his torso.
Yeah. Like that's just an example of all these like weird ass things where technically they had to like support dynamic collision changing and like the mesh is changing on you and like in fucking unorthodox ways, and it's like I was just like a lot of work goes into those fucking bosses.
Well, I will tell you the collision
have to be perfect otherwise the combat is ass, right?
Yeah, Sean and I
Well,
talked
and
about this before, that the animations in this game make the game what it
Oh
is.
yeah,
Like
the
the
animations
animations
are
are
Yep.
unbelievably good, and that's what makes all these designs work, is that they're animated like exactly how you would expect them to move, and it just like works.
Yeah, I hear what you mean by like expect in the way you expect them to move, but like that's part of the unorthodox and bizarre nature of some of those movements, and the surprise element of them makes it interesting just to watch. Even like me, I'm just like watching it, and it's fun to
Right.
watch because it's
Right.
like, what the fuck is that thing? Holy fuck! It did this crazy ass thing.
Right.
That just come out of its ass, like it's all crazy. And to be able to support the gameplay though, because there's some games where there's maybe there's an animation or something like that, but the hitbox doesn't change, or like the whatever. In this particular scenario, at least as far as I could observe, hitboxes stayed true to what you were
So
seeing.
sort
if you
of.
will.
I mean, the collision in the game is probably one of the worst implemented things. I would say there's a lot of weird collision situations that happen to me, at least. I don't know about you guys, but
It's not. I mean, I've definitely done better, but there's some hitbox porn type moments that can happen with like certain weapon arts,
right
but
where
it's
stuff
pretty rare.
yeah.
Because generally, your character is generally just like swinging. They're not,
Yeah,
they're not doing backflips, right?
But this does
I guess
relate to
from my
Josh's
perspective,
comment.
like
Sorry, I was just
if
going to say
if
this relates to Josh's comment about it being like a fighting game, because fighting games are another situation where all moves change the character's hitbox entirely and like alter
Sure.
hitboxes significantly. So yeah, it's very likely that the way they approached this was very similar to how fighting games approach their attack modifications and stuff.
Yep. Yeah, I'm sure there's some collision you can cheese. It was more of like if a limb's out here and you swing at it, you expect it's going to hurt the thing. And generally speaking, at least watching, that was true, right? Like, so anyway,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy
Yeah.
stuff.
No, I mean,
I can't
think
imagine. I'd have like a small team of 20 people per boss or something. It's crazy.
Yeah, I don't know how I think they have like 100 people, or no, maybe they have like three. I don't know. It's for me, it seems like they have a team of like 10,000 people. They started the game in 2000, making the game in 2019.
right, this game took
They
less
were
than
not
3
working on
years
it
to
that
make.
long. Even though they
That's
they
pretty
reused assets and they used the same engine, still like it's nuts.
It's so big.
It's crazy.
No, but fucking shout out to okay, I'll pause. But shout out to them for reusing shit instead of fucking remaking a whole nother new engine. But anyway.
They reuse things very like they use a lot of cut content from like Dark Souls 3 that never made it in. They like take that boss model that in animations that they like half made and like complete it, and it's like some of the bosses in Elden Ring.
Now, we've kind of touched on this in this combat flow a little bit, but is there anything you guys want to add in regards to like the actual difficulty? Like that, let's say, for example, compared to previous games, did you feel like combat was more difficult, less difficult, difficult in a different way, more fun this time? You guys have touched on this, but anything you
I
wanna add?
think the point's mainly the speed. Otherwise, besides that, I don't think it's any more difficult or not, besides points that I would bring up in the open world.
Yeah, I think the big thing
About
about
the open
difficulty
world.
relates to the open world design of the game and the difficulty curve of the game overall.
But like just base mechanics, I think it's in line with their other stuff.
I think
Yeah.
if you play the game the way the game wants you to, even though it doesn't tell you exactly how it wants you to play, but if you play it like perfectly without being told, the difficulty curve will feel really good. The problem is that there's a lot of ways for it not to that we'll talk about soon.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the difficulty is pretty like what you said. It's not significantly different from, well, in my experience, the one other Souls game I played, but they gave you so many more tools.
It's true. The variety is huge.
Yeah, there's way more spells for the Ashes of Wars and the customization. There's so many of them.
The
They
summons
added the
exist.
crafting. There's a bunch of materials. There's the new spirit summons. There's the most out of any of their games stuff to do, right?
Yeah.
And which means gives you the more opportunities to find stuff that works really well together that ends up being kind of broken.
Right. I mean, like, and even if you talk to two people who did the exact same build, I'm sure their like talismans were different. The summons they liked to use would have been different, right? Their
Yeah, I
Ashes of
mean,
War, right? There's so much.
whatever the route they went, the bosses they fought, they're going to. I mean, the game's so
Mhm.
big. Like, it's very easy to just on a playthrough do something completely different than somebody else who's doing something similar, you know?
I will say
Yeah.
that was one of the coolest things about playing through this game, especially while people were playing it simultaneously, was to like be talking to Sean or other people and be like, "Oh, I did this thing and found this thing," and they'd be like, "What? What do you mean? Where's that?" And I would like tell them where it was, and then they would tell me about some cool thing they've found, and you'd be able to go find it. And the game is sprawling enough that you can do that, and it works really well.
On a similar note, the multiplayer is really what made the game for me, in my opinion, was like the experience of like fighting bosses with like my brother and like his friends and stuff. Like, you know, we would all like we'd go and we'd like one of us like is having a problem with like one boss, right? It's like, all right, we're all gonna go and we're gonna like gang up on this boss. And it doesn't necessarily make it like inherently easier because the boss's HP scales with more people, right? But then you end up being like, oh, so like we're trying to figure out tactics to fight this boss. So like, okay, one of us is go draw aggro, you know. So like early game,
Yeah.
I like invested a lot into stamina. So it's like, okay, I'm going to block attacks and you got and try to draw aggro, and you guys kind of attack from the other side. So it was almost like MMO esque, like fighting a raid boss kind of sometimes. So I really enjoyed that. That was like one of like it like in terms of like social gaming experiences was really high up there for me.
That's really cool because I think Sean and I basically didn't use the multiplayer at all, and I mean, I never all the bosses I beat in my world, I never used multiplayer. I helped a friend beat Radon once, and like once I beat Melania, I went back in and did one co-op with someone else because I felt like I needed to like return the favor to the universe once I spent like 6
Right.
hours being here. But yeah, I like used it very little, but I think the multiplayer that I did was fun, and I honestly like if I played again, I would probably do a lot more of it. Some PvP, just that kind of just to have a different experience. Because
Yeah, I
that's
did. I
something
actually
really didn't
do. I do a lot of PvP when I play it. Like every time I go to a new area, I pop the PvP item and just like whack a guy, and it kind
Interesting.
of sucked because the way they do it in the older games, it was always 1v1s generally for a lot of the time. In this one, it's always a 2v1
Unless they
'cause
use the tongue, right?
unless they use the tongue, which is really rare.
Right.
And it's just a different way to do it, and I get it, and it depends on. I mean, right? I mean, and I understand, right? Because it's always for me as the invader. I understand that the host is going to do everything they can to beat me because that's how the multiplayer is supposed to work. So if I'm getting 2v1 when I'm invading somebody, it's cool, but it just ends up being like me.
Yeah,
You,
but
you
I
weren't
also
a fan,
I mean, it depends, right?
it protects people who don't want to be invaded, you
but who
know?
still want to play multiplayer. Yeah, I think it was an interesting implementation of it for sure. And
It's
like,
interesting that they do it though, right? It's like I don't know why they just don't choose it as an opt-in system because people would opt into like I would choose to be invaded
I mean, that's
probably.
what the tongue is for. It is opt-in.
Oh yeah, that's
It is
right. I guess so.
also the duels, like the dueling
Right. There's
finger.
the
Like,
duels and the
You have to
tongue.
put the sign down,
Yeah,
right?
the
So it just
dueling
ends
is
up
rough.
being like for dueling, it ends up being like let me go on the subreddit and see where the duel spot is, right? It's like
Right.
that kind of thing. It makes sure I'm the right level where it's like in Dark Souls 3, whenever you use an I wish it was like because when you use a rune, it increases your stats. And like Dark Souls 3, it's you use an ember which increases your HP, you can be invaded now, right? That's what the
Right.
mechanic was.
Right.
So it
They
was like
dismissed it entirely from any mechanics aside from the specific item that activates it.
right.
Right.
Which it was like the pro is like, oh, I can get some more HP. The con is, oh, some guy's gonna come here and maybe,
Right.
just wreck my shit.
That would have been
right?
interesting, actually. That would have been interesting.
So,
Yeah,
but
but I
I
feel like-
understand it. I mean,
yeah, I feel like from like the perspective of like if I'm playing and if I'm a new player, right? And I don't really understand how invasions work and all of a sudden I get invaded, that like shuts down the game for me.
Well, but you can't get invaded until you beat that guy anyway.
Yeah. Wait, which guy?
The guy at the bottom of the balcony in Round Table Hold.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah. So it's blocked off
that makes
from
a
a
little
lot
more
of
sense.
content. Yeah.
That makes more sense because that's also an optional fight.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's how it was in like the previous games. Is like when you get invaded, when you're just exploring, you're like, I'm just gonna quit out the game,
Right.
Or like hide in the corner and hope they get bored, right?
So this does help prevent stuff like that, right?
Yeah, or you just play offline, I guess,
Right.
technically, if you don't want
Yeah.
to. But I think that's not really a good game design.
No, agreed. I think it was interesting. I mean, it made for a lot of interesting streams to watch, right? Where because you knew the person who was invading was going to be at a disadvantage, so if they won, it was even more like cool to see them win.
And two, the online thing, I mean, just to talk about real quick, is the messaging system is like one of the cornerstones of the series,
yeah.
right? The tri-finger butthole and the goofy, like, so I talked to my brother a lot, and since he was using mods, he didn't get any of the messages, and he missed so many things. I was like,
Yeah,
he was like,
no,
how'd you
I
find that? I was like,
actually-
oh, there was a message in front of the thing that said try whacking
Yeah,
it.
the
And,
messages
you know,
were huge for
it
that.
finally worked,
Yeah.
right? And, you know, even though 80% of them are trolly, they're in a funny way because they're clever.
Right.
And then a lot of them help you a lot. Like find
yeah.
shortcuts and like teleporters. And
No, the messages were like one of my favorite. That's like what made the game feel like it was still multiplayer for me, even though I wasn't playing multiplayer. Right.
And I think that's too is a big part about like when you wonder like how do people find this stuff without a wiki? It's because of the messages.
Right.
For like besides like the completely
Yeah.
obscure stuff, but like it's because of the messages.
Right.
Yeah. I also like how like I like that not it's like people is telling you like, oh, the secret wall and there's not a secret wall, because it's almost like don't trust everything you read on the internet, you know? Like if you're not stupid, right?
Right.
You realize that not everything that people write on the internet is true. So you need to go in there with that kind of mindset. It's like, okay, most of these are probably fake.
Right. It's like try
The ones
jumping
that
and it's like a cliff.
the ones that are always going to be like honest are the ones that tell you when there's danger nearby, because
Yes.
Right.
and those are the most important ones. So it's like
Right. Ambush
be
left.
wary
or
of
whatever.
left.
Yeah.
Exactly. Like those are the ones that matter. Like the hidden passage, like whatever. Like if there's a hidden passage, like you'll see there's like 50 hidden passage messages in the area. Like, okay, maybe one of them's real and maybe none of them are real. Like whatever. There were some times where like, okay, like whatever. But like if I read a message and it saves me from getting like, you know, stabbed in the back by some enemy that's just gonna happen, just like come along and just, you know, ambush me and take out half my health, and now I have to use an extra flask when I didn't have to, especially early in the game. Like that's great. I like that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, it feels good.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, Sean. The message system is one of the
It's really well
coolest
done.
parts of the game. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Now,
unlike a lot of other aspects, it works like great. Oh wait, like it's just.
And they're so quick, right? It's like you read it and it's like they're always only, you know, like 5 words most of the time, right? So it's like
Yeah.
I mean, they've
The
had a lot
only-
of time to refine it, right? Like there's a reason why some of these systems that have been in the game since the beginning worked so well.
right. Yep.
Yeah, the only problem, and this is like, I wish that they made it so that you can't write messages on top of Sites of Grace.
Oh,
Because
you mean like and on like elevator buttons and all of that shit where it like
they need to
stops
fix
you from
that.
No,
interacting?
because well, even like the elevator buttons and stuff, that's like a range thing, right? But you put it on a Site of Grace, that can actually stop you from being able to click on the Site of Grace.
Well, no,
like,
because
entirely.
anytime you're in a situation where there's multiple options, it gives you a scroll. You can hit
No,
right.
no, I'm not talking about that. I know about that. I've had times where it would be on the Site of Grace, and you literally would not be able to access the Site of Grace at all. And it was
the
a new
Grace
Site
one's
of Grace
bugged.
for me.
Yeah.
Like it was bugged, yeah. So like,
Sounds like you need to get good.
They just need to put null zones in and they would be fine.
Yeah.
But
But it is kind of
Okay.
funny that you could just like have
my
them
brother
anywhere.
is my brother is messaging me telling me that you just need to run back and forth over it, and eventually it works.
See, there you go. Get
no
good.
problem.
Okay, I'm pivoting us kind of hard here. Okay, you guys are
Okay.
getting all nitty gritty on fucking messages and stuff, and I want to know, what do you guys think about the story? What do you guys think about the world building of Elden Ring? I'll tell you, I really want to hear Sean's opinion, considering he's a longtime super fan.
It's the same as everyone. I just don't interact with the story.
Okay.
Really?
So
no,
I
I mean-
really liked the story.
Every time I play a new game, I'm like, all right, I'm going to read all the item descriptions and I'm going to pay attention to what the dudes are saying. And I always do it for a little bit. And then eventually I'm like, fucking forget it. Right. So like, obviously the environmental storytelling, I really love. Like, I definitely am like thinking of like, why is this here? And I like understand the base level, but anything deeper than the ocean, right? Anything more shallower than the ocean or whatever is like, I just can't. It's just so difficult to wrap my head around it, right? Like the Ronnie quest line, I really enjoyed, but it's like, what is happening? Like I couldn't explain to you like what. I don't even know who I. The only reason I know anything about it is because I watched that Vati video, so I'm like biased now.
Right, because now you know.
Because I actually kind of know, but like before, it's like I don't even know who her dad is. I don't know. The names are really confusing. I think that's the worst part about the story is the names. It's you got Melina, you got Melania,
horrible.
you got
I agree with you on
Marika,
that. The
you got
naming convention
Morgot,
is
you got Margit. It's like who the fuck
confusing.
is who? Like who
Right.
are, what is
Yeah.
happening?
Right.
Right? It's just so.
So you're right. Like
It's so beautiful.
I
Like,
agree with
oh my
you.
god, George R. R. Martin's done it again.
I was in the same boat as you with it. When I said I really like the story, I really like the base level story that I experienced, and
right,
like
the concept
environments
is
and
good.
the concept and like
yeah,
the
the concept of the
experience is cool.
tree and the order and like
Right.
that stuff makes, and like the factions are all distinct, right? I can understand that there's war and like that makes sense to me. But if I'm
The
like,
second you go
what's
beyond
the
that,
story about the guy in Stormvale Castle who's stomping on the boss's head?
right, or like once you get into the deep specifics, it becomes
Right.
nearly impossible.
Like what happened to Alexander, right? I want to know what happened to him, but I couldn't finish his quest line without looking at the wiki because I didn't find him in some obscure
or any
location.
quest line without looking
And
at
I wanted
the
to
wiki.
look, but it's like eventually it's like I'm not going to run around the whole world trying to find this guy, right? So it's just like, you know.
Yeah, I mean, I think
people in chat saying they got most of their like story from outside sources. Is that usually true for you guys?
That's how it always is.
I mean,
for both
I'll
games for me.
usually do that afterwards because especially the
right.
game.
So did you not look up any side quests during the game?
Me?
Yeah.
I looked up. The only one I looked up was Ronnie's.
Okay.
Because
And did you finish any others?
Uh,
I'm just curious because I did. I looked up Ronnie's and the Volcano Manor one, and I finished those, and then I didn't finish any others because I didn't look them up
oh no, I also looked up gold masks. That's right.
and finished
Yeah,
it.
did
Right?
also
I didn't
finished
find Gold Mask at all.
Yeah. See, I think that's and that I think is a
Well, the thing
huge
is,
problem.
I found gold mask and I had no idea what to do with him because he doesn't talk to you. So I was like, who is this man and how do I interact with him?
Right.
And the game doesn't tell you that. You have to look it up separately.
yeah.
It
This is the
actually,
U-
it's
the
not
problem with the
entirely
UX,
true,
right?
but
This is just the tip of the iceberg. But yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's a huge design flaw to that like literally everyone has to look it up. And you could argue that like it's cool that there's like this community effort behind figuring this stuff out, but like I don't buy that shit. Like there are ways to do the things they wanted to do with side quests and stuff without with still having it feel obscure and like discovery and all of this, but without
Yeah.
having it be like the only
There's-
way to do it is look it up.
In my
The
opinion,
way
there's
that-
2 ways to fix it that are super easy. Is one, have the NPCs talk to you more, like a little longer, because usually they only talk to you in like a couple blurbs. And then the
then
second
they
one is the
die.
engine limitation where you have to rest for the world state to change. If they had an engine that made it so after you're done talking to an NPC and exhausting their dialogue, they like walk away and disappear instead of having to rest, that would
Right.
help
The
too.
fact that they're like, "Oh, I'm going to leave Stormvale Castle." And you're like, "Oh, then they're like they don't leave and then it is very strange." And I also think one more addition would be some sort of like UI. Like after the game came out, they added a patch that at least had the NPC
Right.
locations
Yeah.
on the map. That was a huge
That helped.
improvement.
Yeah, a friend I had made a good point too of if there was like a journal where you could like go back and reread like previous dialogue.
Right, not even
from
like
an
a quest
NPC.
log where it tells you exactly what to do, but just
No,
lets
yeah,
you
just be
reread.
like, here's the guy, he said this, 20 hours ago when you talked to him
Right.
there, right? That you totally forgot about, and he's not there anymore, so you won't ever know that again, right?
Because
Like, you
otherwise,
just
the only thing you
recap.
have is the quest item description. That's all you have for the quest once you talk to the NPC, and that's usually nothing. That shit usually
If
tells
they
you
give you
nothing.
one though.
If it even has an item, that's true.
Yeah, sometimes they don't even have one.
Right.
Yeah.
yeah. Although
So
I would
before we,
often,
oh sorry,
well,
go
Yeah,
ahead,
what do you-
Josh.
what
Go
do you
ahead.
say?
I would often find myself completing parts of quests without actually like getting the
Right.
quest yet.
Right.
Like for Gold Mask, I did the whole thing with like what's it called? Like the Radagon statue and the
I don't know
regression.
any of this, so
I know what you're talking about. Yeah,
I did the whole
never did
thing
that, though.
before I
Yeah.
looked up Gold Mask side quest, just from like talking to Pope Turtle, and then like there's like a thing there's a message on the floor that's like regression something. I was like, oh, let me use a
I
lot
think-
of regression
I
here.
think that's such a good point because I think for anybody who hasn't played the game is probably thinking like, "What the fuck is Josh talking about?" Right? And I think that's like what the quest design is like, right?
It is.
It's like talks to Pope Turtle with a statue, and they have to use an obscure spell on. It's just like nuts. It's like
I don't think it's not that obscure because the game gives it to you when you
I
beat.
know it tells you regression, but what if you don't have this? Oh, does the game give you that
The game.
spell?
You get it from when you beat the ghost of.
Right, but is that anywhere
Yeah.
near this guy? No.
Yeah, it is. It's
Oh.
in the same area.
Okay,
Yeah,
okay,
it's in the
that's
same
fair. What if
area.
yeah, but then you have to be able to use it, right? You need the stats
But
for
then
it.
you say
you
you
need the
knew
stats for it.
right.
You do need the stats for it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so bad. I'm sorry. Like I'm just gonna straight up say the side quest design is horrible.
Oh no,
I think it's
agree. The
maybe
side
the
quest
worst
design
design
is
thing in the
very
entire game.
obtuse.
And they do
Very
have a
obtuse.
habit of leaving a
Yeah.
lot of the story open ended,
Yeah,
right?
but I do love the lore aside from the
Yeah.
way that the side quests are set up.
I think that's fair. I think it sounds like we're all fans of the lore of the game rather than the actual like story.
I just wish I could interact with the lore in a more accessible way while I'm playing. Like it
Right.
should have been easier to experience, and it's stupid that you have to even to like figure out. I'm getting ahead of myself into UX, but even to figure out that an item raises your int, you have to literally scroll over in its fucking description. Like if I want to figure out if I have to do that to figure out if an item raises my int,
Well-
you think I'm gonna figure out all the other shit that like is in the story?
That I don't
hold
mind
on.
too
Before we
much.
totally open
but-
the can of UI UX problems on
Uh-huh.
there, let's just talk about one more thing, and then you guys can just have at it because I think
Okay.
you're almost about to all open up the can of whoop ass on the UX. Okay, the open world. Okay, was it a good thing? Did you like how it was implemented? What were some highlights about it? Pros and cons, guys. Give me your opinions.
I loved the open world.
Yeah,
The only reason I
100%.
finished this game was because it was open world. And the fact
In
that I
what-
could
in what way?
the
What?
fact that when I was in a fight, if I decided, "Hey, I don't want to do this anymore," or "Hey, I'm not interested in this thing that I'm doing right now," in Dark Souls 3 when I played it, if I decided that, I'm fucked, right? I'm like, "Okay, I guess I'm just not finishing the game." But in this game, it's like, "Oh, great. There's like 1,000 things I can do instead." And there's honestly very few mandatory things in Elden Ring. And so like that's what made it so nice.
Right.
I loved the way the open world worked. For me personally, it made the game. Like that was what makes the game so good to me. The discovery of like finding random caves, knowing that no matter where I go, there'll be interesting things to find. Like happening upon at the beginning of the game, I like went randomly into Caelid like pretty early and like happened upon a random cave that had this awesome staff in it, and I ended up using that for like 20 hours, and it was super fun. Like the fact that that was possible made the game for me. It was so cool.
Yeah.
Anybody else?
no.
Who's the next one? I have a few I'll say it at the end though.
Mm.
Josh.
Yeah, no, I agree. I am a huge fan of the. I almost don't want to say open world per se because it's not inherently an open world thing, but the ability to go the wrong way, I like. I am the kind of gamer where if I know which direction is the right way to go, I will go everywhere except that because because I want to find all like the stuff that, isn't on the main path, right? So like I like getting lost, I like not knowing. If I don't know which way I'm supposed to go, that's great. If I know which way I'm supposed to go, I'm not going there. I'm going somewhere else first.
Hot
So
take,
I really
this is why
like-
Josh makes so many maze levels in Agora.
Yeah, I'm the only person. I always get. I'm constantly getting roasted for my. love of
Wait.
mazes.
Josh's brother's in chat and says Josh just always goes the wrong way and he pretends he likes it.
No, I do like it. I do like it. I just have, I have that, that gamer's intuition that always drives me to go the wrong direction. What can I say?
Right.
I think though what David's alluding to here in chat is like, do you just suck and you're justifying it retroactively?
I don't suck because it is intentional.
Okay.
I am
okay.
built from like, and
No,
it's not like open world thing.
What did
Like
I know what you're talking about, Josh, because when I play games like that, I'm always like, wait, I want to make sure I'm going the wrong way first.
right.
At least
you
for me.
wanna
I'm
look
always
for the
trying to do the
secrets.
non-real thing and then do the
Especially
main
when you're in
thing.
like a dungeon, right? Where you don't want to come back. So I'm like, I want to find all the secrets on the way to the boss so I don't have
Exactly.
to come back. Yes.
That's
I did
what I'm
that
like,
too.
yeah.
Yeah.
Now my brother keeps roasting me in the
It's
chat.
okay.
Yeah,
The
he
people
says
listening
reduce-
online
When I
can't
played Hollow
can't read
Knight,
the chat.
I
We're good.
completely bypassed the entire storyline for like 70% of the game, and he was fuming the whole time.
Hey, this is why you got to watch Quality Time live on Twitch. Okay, you miss out on things like this. Sean, your
So
thoughts
I thought
on
the open world detracted significantly from my experience because
Oh, fuck.
So when I think back on it, the thing I really enjoy about their and I think a big part of it is because I'm such a fan of the previous games, right? So I have a lot of bias from that, but for me, what I love about the previous games is it's like such a curated experience. One of the things I love most about the games is that there's no difficulty settings, right? It's like when you play a FromSoft game, you're playing the game as they built it, right? There's no scaling, everything's 1-to-1. And I think that flows much easier when you have I wouldn't call it linear because I would call them more interconnected worlds of the previous games. Like my favorite parts of Elden Ring are the parts where you're not in the open world and you're in Stormvale Castle or the Castle Morn or the Academy,
Which they call legacy dungeons for a reason, right?
the legacy, like Farum Azula, which is a completely separate zone in the map that
Or
you
Halig
get
Tree,
teleported
right?
to, or
All
Halig
these
Tree, which
places,
is
right?
all stuff. Those, and even the river, which is I would consider is similar to the previous games, even though it's like the biggest version of the legacies, right? Were all my favorite parts of the games. The open world to me felt like, all right, I'm going in this dungeon just to see if there's a thing there, and then so I can move on to the next part. Not that they were bad or I hated it or anything. I guess it was me wishing it wasn't that way. Because like for me, if I get stuck on a boss, I'm going in, right? I fought Radon for 6 hours. He was the one that took me the longest, and I grinded him for 6 hours and beat him the next day, right? And I was like, all right, on to the next one, because that's the way I play the games, right?
Well, and that's the way like everyone plays the previous games, which I think is like an interesting.
You're a bit forced to. I mean,
exactly.
The games do have paths that you can optional paths you can take, but they're like way more obscure and way more limited, right?
No, but I think that's
nearly the same.
That's an interesting point. Like I think that's why Elden Ring is so accessible, is because for people who don't have that mentality, it works really well. But I do think because of that, it does detract from people who do want to have that mentality. It puts right. So I honestly think it's much more, the open world concept was much more for the new people than for the FromSoft veterans.
That makes sense. Yeah, and it's like to me, like the way I stumbled upon the areas is I went to one of the super end game areas really quickly. It was Moog. I fought him like super early where he gave me like 20 levels from beating him. And I got like my weapon super upgraded and I felt like over leveled. Like I stopped leveling at the end of the game because I was deleting everything. And I think the open world was part of that.
Yeah, Sean definitely had like an unlucky open world experience.
I stopped leveling at 135, which is like earlier than I think a lot of.
Well, but Sean was 135 for a while.
I was there I stopped level. I was level 135 like at the giant. I'm pretty sure.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I watched Sean fight some bosses.
I'm gonna do every single dungeon in every area before I move on because I was like, this game's huge. I'm probably not gonna play it again for a while. So I did everything, and I was like, really over leveled.
Yeah. No, I think I was 135 like at the end of the game.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I honestly do think like you got unlucky, and that's another unfortunate part of the design is that they made it so open that it was possible for that to happen. Like
I mean, it's the quest line. Like normally to get to the area I went to, you have to get to the snowfield, which is like one of the last areas of the game, and teleport. Right. But there's an NPC quest that gives you an item that you use that just plops your ass in there.
Right.
And that's how I got there. I got there like after Renala or something.
Right.
So.
Yeah. So
and I did Kaled before I did the
capital
plateau.
Yeah.
I did Kaled first, so I was just like kind of.
Yeah. Same. Wait, are you supposed to do the plateau before you're not supposed to do the plateau before
no, in terms of upgrade materials, because I was looking on the map, the plateau would technically be before Kaled.
Yeah, it goes plateau, then Kaled, then Volcano Manor, right? Then mountaintop.
The capital, and then the mountaintop. If you go by like what materials drop in the zones, I guess.
That's interesting.
Although a Caelid is way more accessible because it's right there.
It's right there.
Yeah,
Which
exactly.
I think is cool that they had that, like
Yeah.
this high level area that you can go
I
to.
think they
right
intend
away.
you go in there and you see like, holy shit, there's like these giant creepy ass birds. I'm gonna
Right.
leave.
And
Right?
And then they
Yeah,
like
to be
fuck you up
fair,
in one hit. Yeah.
Right.
Caelid is like designed, even from like a visual perspective, to be like to make you feel like you're not supposed to be there.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, it's very.
That is true though.
No,
that
thanks.
yeah, one half of the Dectus medallion is in Caelid, but you can get past the
Yeah.
elevator without the medallion,
You can go up the secret path,
which is what
yeah.
I did. It wasn't that secret,
I
right? It tells
didn't
you
do
about
No,
that.
it.
I got
I went
the
through that secret
medallion.
path because it's just up the river.
Yeah.
At the end of the river. That's how I made it. I didn't find
You
the
know,
second medallion.
It's
ever.
weird because I went up the river and I didn't find it, and I just turned around and went back.
Oh no.
Yeah.
And you can get teleported to Volcano Manor, and you
Right.
can get teleported, there and to the end of Caelid, and the game kind of can throw you around.
Which
Yeah.
so I thought that was pretty cool. The fact the
Yeah.
teleport trap that brings you to the capital at near the beginning of the game. I don't know if you guys felt the one in the
I did
south
not.
at the top of the tower. There's
Does it
one
bring you
that
to the
teleports you
giant?
to the top of the bridge where the stone giant is.
Yeah,
But
yeah, I
you
know what you're
can't
talking
get
about.
down. You're just you
Yep.
can only like go to him, get the item next to him, and teleport away. And you can see like the dragon statue in the
Yep.
capital. That teleport trap was like one of my favorite things in the game. Like seeing
It
the
just gives you a
capital
little
area
sneak peek.
so long before you get there,
There is
and it
one-
expands your map too. It puts
Yeah.
that on the map, and I'm just like, what the fuck?
Did you
There's
know
so
there's
much
one
more.
there's one of those for Farum Azula?
I did it.
Yeah.
The one
Yeah,
in the
that's one that
belfry,
teleports
right?
you to the belfry that teleports you to a section where you can't go
Yep,
anywhere,
but
but
you
you
can
can
see
see
it.
the whole thing, and you're like, what the
Yeah.
fuck is
Yep.
that?
There's-
right?
there's
And then
a
you
few
don't
of
come to it for
those.
like another 50 hours, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I think some of that stuff was really, really cool.
Mm.
Yeah, the fact that you could, when I was watching streamers initially, part of the reason why I decided to spend money on it was because of the aspect of being able to go and level up and come back to something or whatever that the open world afforded you.
Yeah.
To emphasize this point about the open world helping it be more accessible. I mean, I think there might be a correlation to the fact that the making it more accessible, widening it up to a bigger audience or whatever could have contributed to the fact that it fucking sold 12 million copies
100%
in the first
sure.
30 days.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then you compare that to Dark Souls 3, which hit 10 million in 2020, meaning it took however many years, right, to get to.
I mean,
just
Grant,
even
Elden
10
Ring was
million.
also like the most hyped up game of all time.
Yeah, it was
Yeah.
definitely hyped up like the entire, at least the year before. if not
Wait, like
longer.
if you're in Sean's world, which I happen to be, it was hyped up for like 5 years before. Like
I was in for all the leaks, and I participated in like all the leaks, and I saw the footage I saw cell phone footage of the trailer, like the launch trailer
with the Giants,
of like
right?
super low res, and like you could tell it was like not finished and everything, and everyone was like, this game's gonna be shit, it looks so bad, right? And people were like, it's not finished yet, and obviously it ended up being amazing, and the trailer was just they hadn't done polish or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Clearly was awesome.
Hey,
But
what I tell you, Sean, I told you it was going to be 95.
I
you know?
will say the open world, I think, will make any subsequent playthroughs way better. Because a big thing about like new playthroughs for me is like I want to do a build where I'm carrying this specific weapon, but some in the previous games, like I have to play 50% of the game before I can use an Elden Ring. I can go get that weapon in 30 minutes and then play the whole game with the weapon. Which
It does require a lot of like self-discipline to decide and like work to figure out how you're going to do the run without just like, upgrading the weapon to max and upgrade your character to max right away, which I think is a little annoying. There's no way to like do like a catered run like you said.
Without putting
I
in
do
prep,
think it is
but-
cool. If
but
you're
the
willing to put the
option is
prep in,
there.
I think it's really
So when I play Elden Ring again, eventually in a couple, whenever, before the DLC comes out or something, I'm sure it'll be a fun time. Because then you can choose what you want. I can also be like, I'm not doing that. I'm just gonna fight this guy, right?
Right.
I think that
One other point I want to make about the open world, at least in my observation, see if you guys agree, is that the way they implemented the open world, there's less hand holding of like UI markers and shit like that, and instead they use like environmental cues to kind of indicate to you, go this way, check this out, and then it makes some of the like self-discovery of like, oh, there's a fucking cave here, or oh shit, there's a secret, whatever, like even more satisfying, at least to me, than when you like all this information is provided like for you.
So I don't necessarily think so. I actually think that we should wait on this. This is a UX question.
Well, I actually intentionally brought up this point
Oh.
because it segues
Okay.
into UI, UX. How do we feel about it? Which things?
So actually, like
yeah.
every cave that's in the almost every cave that's in the world is on the map, visually indicated.
You can see
Okay.
stuff.
You can see it. So that is the only reason that this is okay in my mind. Like, it is so because these areas are enormous, and to like, if you want to find stuff, it's nice that you can go to the map and find it. In my opinion, and like, I wouldn't have minded if there was an indicator. Like, if there was like just a little thing that showed you that there was like something in the area, I would never mind that.
Well, they did those little statues for like only the catacombs, that like their eyes point the
Right.
light to it. I don't know why they didn't expand on that.
Yeah, that mechanic was great.
I thought
Because
that was
those are
fun.
the hardest ones to find without it, I think.
Right. Yeah, they
Right,
basically just said these
that's
are the
true.
really hard ones to find, and the rest
'Cause
you're
they're
on
just
your own.
whole little hole and door in the wall, right?
Oh,
for
but
all those ones.
can we talk about how before you get the map and can see this shit, you have to figure out that the fucking lighthouse on the map is where the map is, and I have no idea why they didn't tell you that. Like, this is like the beginning of my UX UI complaint rant. Is there's so many things in the game that were simple things that they could have told you about that would have improved the experience so significantly for some people.
Or even like what you just said about the whole thing with the map. If the map, like whatever you call it, lighthouse or totem or
Right, whatever.
phone, if that was like near like the beginning of the game and you saw that immediately, that would be a lot better just because
if like the
you would
first one was right
immediately
outside
see
of the
it.
entrance.
Exactly.
Yeah,
The first one was
exactly.
right out to the
But they
entrance, and
also
you
have
go
to
and
clue
see
you
it
in that
pick it
it's
up.
an icon on the map, which which that would not accomplish, and that's the big
That's
problem,
true.
right? And I know people who I talked to who were like in the fucking capital who I told that to, and they were like, "What do you mean?" Right? Like,
right.
they were like, "You can see where the maps are at the beginning," which is great. I'm so happy you can see where the maps are. Why don't they just fucking tell you? Like, that's not a thing that you need to keep obscure.
Yeah, definitely. No, I agree.
I'm trying to think
It's
how
weird.
they would tell you though.
By a guy just saying, "Hey, I put this." Like, they could have had the first guy you see be like, "Oh, by the way, here's this map, and if you look for you should go seek out those icons." Just something like that, right?
Right.
There's a
Yeah,
way
I
they
guess
can do
part
it
is
in their Elden Ringy
you're
way and
never
still have it be good.
given the map is just something you have.
Right. Like,
Yeah.
and I think that's
Yes.
a big part of this, right? Is there's a lot of things they could improve, and there Sean's got the lighthouse right there over his stage right or stage left shoulder. Yeah, like it's just like a random shitty icon. Like, once you know what it is, it's obvious, but before that, it just looks like it's on the map and you don't know what it is.
Yeah, or even if it just had like a more obvious design, like a globe or something.
Maybe, yeah, that could help.
Yeah, if it wasn't a little.
Like just like a little.
Although,
even
but
know
I
what-
think a lot of
whatever
people
that is.
mentally just when
Just
they
like a
see a
tombstone or
blank map,
something.
they just assume it's blank, right? So I don't know.
Yeah, but it's the same thing because I think these also have the like the telescopes on them.
Right.
The telescopes are really obvious.
Right.
When
The
you see a
telescopes are
telescope,
like,
it's
of
"Oh, it
course
looks
I'm
like a
going to go
telescope."
see what that is, right? Which ended up being
Yeah.
like one of the most useless,
Yeah,
it's useless
actually.
It was
things.
cool, but it didn't really.
It was
Right.
The
cool, but it
perspective
didn't-
was really
I
hard to
used it
follow.
like once.
Yeah.
I used it once.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so yeah, I think, and this UI element gets into this other thing which I was talking about before, which is like on items, why is there not just like there are icons that show you what your changes are under your health bar, but the game doesn't explain that shit to you at all. Like what those icons are, which ones are which, and like why when I have a helmet does it not just tell me that it gives me int on the first screen that I can see? Why is there not like a little description section that's like, here's the effects this thing has? Like, why?
Why is there not an icon glossary, right? Because it's like, so what I remember some Reddit post or something where people are like, hey, what's this
red square with an
square under my health bar?
The
People are
red
like, well,
square.
it comes from a gear, so obviously it's a piece of gear. It's like, fuck that. It's like, why can't I just go into the help menu and it'd be like, here's all of the icons and what they do, right? Why do I have to go to the wiki where it has that?
It's that shit.
It
Is
The
reminds
thing
me
for
of,
me about the UX in this game is there's a million little things that are annoying where if you just had one of them in a game it'd be like, okay, whatever, no big deal. But there's so many of them that it's just like huge.
Well, and
right?
in most
all of them
games,
together,
even
so
if there's bad
frustrating.
UX, it like tells you. it's like obvious. In this, there's shit you would never even realize was bad UX because you wouldn't even know it was in the game.
Right. It's like when you get the cookbooks that enable new crafting stuff, how long did it take me to be like, oh, I have to read the item description of it to see what thing it unlocked?
Crafting item it added? Right. Why is
And
there no
eventually you're
like
like,
I would just
exclamation?
go to the
Forget it.
crafting menu and see like what the new thing was every
Right.
time.
Well, yeah. Well, and then towards the end of the game, though, you're like, well, it added 2 new things out of
Right,
the
2
50
new things
I
in my
have, right? So
50,
you're like,
yeah.
shit, I don't know which one's which, right?
Yeah.
It's
I
like,
guess
why
if
doesn't
you
it
don't
say
look
when
at
you
the
pick it up,
crafting
it's
menu
like
that too often,
book
you would notice,
enables poison flask and fire flask.
Right.
Like
Why
when
does
you
it
pick
not
it up.
just say that when
Like,
you're
I don't know. It's strange.
but- yeah. I
it's
mean,
so weird.
I didn't know that I didn't know that the things the cookbook said that, but I also never really had a problem with it because I would just I was constantly looking at my my crafting.
Well, and this is the thing, right?
oh.
For people interacting a lot with specific systems, they will never have this problem. But that's not who UX is for, right? UX isn't for the people who are figuring this shit out guaranteed because they're going to interact with it a ton. It's for the people who want to use it once, and it should be a streamlined experience, and it's not at all. You know what I mean?
I just want, yeah, but if you're the guys who made Souls, you have an expectations of a Souls-like experience, and all of a sudden you make this hand-holdy thing.
It's
how
not
much-
hand-holdy to tell you that a fucking item raises your intelligence. That's insane to say.
I think, like, we have Mater Life here in chat. He's saying, I didn't mind the struggle of figuring things out, made the game feel less like a game and more like an adventure. That's like the point that
But
I
you can
saw
still
in the
figure
reviews I
things
watched.
out without it being like bad, like obscure for bad reasons.
yeah,
I think that
there's
there's plenty to figure out, even if the game has obvious UI elements.
I mean,
Like-
there's a difference because it's like one, either the item can tell me it increases a stat, or it's like the other option is what I equip every single item every time I pick something up and squint at my stat bar to see if it does it or not, right? It's like it would be like, I mean, the game has a lot of numbers. There's a bunch of numbers in the game, right? And like that's what the builds are about. And I think it needs to enable that. The whole
Right.
core
think-
concept of the game is building your stats to go for a thing. And I think that should be enabled.
It should be
So, like, the thing-
streamlined
the
to
example
make the
we brought
build
up-
you want. For
The
sure.
thing, well, so you just mentioned this thing. I pick up an armor, and there's not a little thing that says like what I just got out of it, right? That forces you to go into a menu and look.
No,
yeah?
it doesn't force you to do anything because that information is nowhere in the game.
It's not in the menu
No,
either.
nowhere in the game.
But like in the
It
armor
tells
I
you.
picked up, it was in the menu.
You didn't have armor that had the actual stuff we're talking about. You've never gotten an
Yeah, we're
item that had
talking
an
about-
Okay,
effect.
so you're saying there's literally metrics completely hidden.
They're not
from-
completely
Yeah.
hidden, but you
They're
have to
not completely
read the
hidden, but-
paragraph long item description to figure it out that you think is just story information.
I see. Okay, yeah, I
Not
can see
even
that being
always,
just
but like
ass.
the easiest way is you put the thing on, and then you notice that.
Right, but
there's
that's
a
what
plus
Sean's saying.
4
You would have to
in-
put every item in
You
your
would have to
inventory.
put
So
everything
here's the
on.
thing. So the correct thing. So it does tell you that it increases stats. It doesn't tell you how much it increases them by.
Right, yeah, even in the spot where it tells you it in the obscure story description, it never tells you how much, even though the whole game is about specific numbers. It's like crazy.
Yeah. Okay.
It's
Okay.
so
Yeah.
bad. And now we can talk about another horrible UI element, which is the fucking pouch and item equipment thing. Like the pouch is
The
a great
pouch is
idea.
terrible.
I cannot tell you. I legitimately do not remember how I put items in my pouch. I put them
Yeah.
in there. Like when I first
You're-
started playing, Sean showed me, and then I do not.
You're
can't-
talking about the
do not
where you
remember.
hold Y
The
and then
quick
press the
access
D-pad
pouch,
or whatever.
which was great. I
Yeah.
loved
Oh yeah,
that.
it's
That
just
was,
it's just in the inventory screen.
but it's so
it's above the emotes. Yeah,
Right, you
It's
have to, like,
kinda
Yeah,
weird.
but it's next to
Yeah.
emotes, which I also didn't know
No,
how
but
to
that's
use
not-
at first.
right. That's not
You have
even
to
the
hold
inventory
Y
screen.
and then do
Yeah.
No,
I
that's
guess, yeah, I
that's
don't
the
menu.
remember.
separate screen. That's
It's
in the menu,
yeah.
not in the inventory screen. You
Right,
can't access
yeah.
the pouch in the inventory screen, even though it's literally an element of your inventory. Like
Yeah.
these
no,
are just
I
like
still,
decisions that blow my mind. I can't believe they made these decisions.
Yeah, the pouch was. I mean, I like the pouch.
No, me
but
too.
the way that you put stuff in it was just like
Right. It's just that's the
I didn't know
thing.
how to do it for so
It's
long. I
just
had
like
to
I'm
look
so
it up.
many
the
good
numbers
ideas.
Is like when you think about sitting down at a grace to level up your character, how many numbers are on that screen?
Right.
It's all your stats. It's your right weapon damage 1, 2, 3, left 1, 2, 3. All the robustness. There's like fucking 70 numbers on that screen, right? It throws numbers in your face.
Right.
And you don't know what half of them do.
Well, and you don't even have a sense. The
Yeah.
big thing for me was like, not
But-
only do you have all these numbers, but you don't have a sense of what the scale of those numbers are. Like, if an item goes up by 12 resistance, what the fuck does that mean? I don't know.
Yeah, I agree.
Right?
The percentages are obscure for the damage reduction. They're not very well.
Yeah.
They're there, but you have to like.
It's like 3
stare at
menus
it.
away,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
there, but it's not. It's not like when I think of like Path of Exile or Diablo, which are also games about numbers. When I put a glove, hover a glove, and I'm saying like I'm gonna use this instead of this, it's like damage plus 5%. Right. I'm like,
Here's
oh,
how
shit,
this compares to
easy,
your current
right?
build. Yeah.
Makes sense, right? So I definitely want to use this. Or like damage minus 2%, but more mana regen. It's like, okay, so now I can make an informed choice of like what I want to do.
That requires you to do like complex math problems
it's
in
like,
this game.
Yeah. It's just,
Yeah,
and
I
then
think-
like for
I think
equipment
part of it
load,
is that's part of the point. I think is because they don't want you to focus on the stats a whole lot.
But you have to. Like you can't say
You don't
can't
actually
you can't
have to.
you can't say they don't want you to focus on stats when they put all of those numbers on that menu. If they didn't want you to focus on stats like that, they would have implemented it in a completely different way. Then you don't need any of that.
I agree with that, but I also think that they don't really want you to pay too much attention
Then
to
they
stats,
should
aside from the
change
fact
it.
that's
Then
going
that's
up.
terrible UX.
I
And
agree.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
so
what I'm
for
saying.
me,
like,
I had to.
People make all these Dark Souls like excuses. Like they give FromSoft so much leeway. So like, oh yeah, that's how they meant it to be. But it's like, no, I can see what you intend.
I
and
agree
right?
with you.
Like,
I think it is what they intended to do. I think it still could have been done better.
well, I think their intention is obvious, but the way they implemented their intention was very bad.
Yeah, I think there's a couple problems with it too, because like on the one hand, right, I understand what you mean, Josh, because it's like, but two, on the one hand, if I level up and I'm leveling up strength +1, it's like that doesn't feel good, right? Because I don't notice any, except for the early game.
I agree with you. Leveling up stats doesn't feel like you're getting stronger, really.
The only time it feels good
Unless
is
you
when
level
I
up a bunch.
finally hit a stat requirement so I can use the weapon.
Right. Or a spell
That's why I'm like,
hitting an int
woo,
requirement.
like I got 40
think that's
strength,
why
I can use a big
that's
ass
the only
sword.
reason that that's
Right.
what most people care about. Like
Except
for
for
me,
endurance.
I didn't care about what the numbers were, except can I wield a weapon or not.
Right. For me, I had to respec a few times, so I had to make sure my endurance was the right number so I could carry all my stuff and still not fat roll. I popped a calculator out once or twice for that, right?
Right. But you didn't have that information. You were using information from the wiki, right?
No, I mean you can add it up,
Oh,
right?
because you're adding
no,
your carrying load.
'cause I have to- the other way is
Yeah.
or just waste respec points and respec until I get the thing to a right point, so I have medium equip load while I'm carrying.
I
all my
will say,
stuff.
I'm very proud of them for giving you so many
That's
larval
true.
tiers, dude.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah,
they could
give
have
you a
been.
ton. You could
Yeah,
farm them.
you get like 25. Yeah, and I think and they're
you can
farmable. You
farm
get a
them, yeah.
shitload of them.
Yeah,
I have
that was
probably had
great.
at least 15 when I beat the game.
Going into
And I
that
used
game, if
them
you
all.
asked me how many times do you think FromSoft is going to allow you to respec your character, I would have said like 5 max.
Oh my god! So I was like planning that because in all the previous game, it's like twice, but only after you've beaten 75% of the game and they're in really obscure locations, right?
Right.
Is like kind of how it's, or not at all, right?
Right.
So the fact that you can do it infinite
was
amount
definitely
of
a
times
huge plus.
is because there's so much shit, right? It's nice to be able to get a weapon and it's like this looks really cool, but I don't have the stats, and be like, oh, I'll just go respec and use it, right?
Right.
Too bad the upgrade systems.
You guys feel like you've got all your big UX bitching out?
I'm sure
that you
there's like
wanted to do?
1,000 things I forgot to
I'm
mention.
hoping
Probably
that a
go
lot of the
on.
problems are from the engine, right? Because I know, so the next game
Yep.
they're done with this engine for sure. This is the last game on this engine. Hopefully, the new engine,
Unreal 5.
yeah, maybe they go to Unreal or I don't know, because they're like, whatever they do. Hopefully, maybe that's a big problem, or maybe Miyazaki, that's the way he likes it.
He loves that shit. Yeah.
and that's what it's gonna
Like
be.
his
I don't
poison
know.
swamps.
Yeah, I don't know.
We'll see. Because I think with a game, because Elden Ring got so much more accessibility and so much more exposure that I think a lot of the UX and UI elements people before were just like, this is part of getting good. I think that concept sort of melted away a bit with Elden Ring, so maybe they'll have a different perspective.
Right, I hope so, because it's similar to like when Sekiro came out. That was like that spurred that huge debate of like, do all games need an easy mode, right type thing. So hopefully Elden Ring brings in like
Yeah.
if you guys want your games to keep selling 12 million copies in a weekend, let's
let's continue.
You don't have to
down
go
this path.
100% in on like
Easy mode.
the trend in easy mode and make everything super easy,
Mhm.
but like let's
I'm gonna be
bit,
honest.
little
I played this game on easy mode. Easy mode is called,
Mimic
Mimic
tier.
tier.
True. You're right. Well, but yeah. I'm not gonna
No,
go
but I
into a
agree
rant.
with you
I
that
agree.
they added those options to I agree.
Right. And I think it's
Actually
great that they added all that. Like that.
I actually
That's one of
think
the best
Mimic
things in the
tier
game.
is normal mode and not using Mimic tier is hard mode.
That's-
is how
I
agree.
would describe it,
That's
I think,
true.
is the
Yeah,
way
I
would
agree
think
that
would
because there
phrase
are
it.
definitely still times where it was tough even with Mimic
The
tier.
game felt balanced around
Melania
using a
heals
summon.
40%. Literally, Mimic tier on Melania is like, oh, here, you want an extra 40% of your health back?
Yeah. I think that's yeah. I
Yep.
think we could talk forever about little things about the UX because there's a laundry list of them, but they're all in the same bucket
Via the
of
debuff.
I mean, the
Yeah.
UX
Yeah, you know-
UI design is the difference between this game being a 10 for me and being something else. I'll say that.
I talked to UX. I talked to a bunch of UX people at GDC about Elden Ring. I asked them during some happy hours and stuff, and what they thought about it. And yeah, they most of them were just like, hey, look, they do their own thing as Souls. Like UX is meant to sort of just try and help the design in some cases. Like meaning
I mean,
that
You have to think about
it-
what UX is, right? Is user experience, right? So the user experience, I would say, in a Souls game,
well, the
is
intended
built
user
around.
experience.
No, yeah, it's
Yeah,
about
but
the
yeah.
intended
built
user
around-
experience.
I think it's supposed to
something
be
else.
overwhelming.
It is
I think-
supposed to be.
I think
because
Miyazaki is like
Miyazaki said that
Yeah.
he made these games a specific way to make them difficult because he wants people to have the feeling of overcoming hardship.
But there's a difference between difficulty and bad design. And
I agree
these
with you.
things we have talked
the
about
UI
here
stuff-
are bad design.
UI stuff, I agree with you, but I think like the difficulty of the game,
But
how the
that's not
game
UX related.
is not. Well, it is still UX related.
No,
I
game
would
being
say.
hard isn't UX.
I just
It
think
depends on how
that's
you
like
define
super
UX.
subjective. I mean, like, what's I don't know his name. My lead director, design director, could think it's good design to make you force you to go out.
I
you know?
think his design, I could see him being like, all right, so the world's overwhelming, it's depressing in like the previous games, and I think in a way the UX, the bad UX design does add to the
it's
like,
overwhelming.
I don't think
feeling
so. For
the
me, this is
world.
a Dark Souls apologist take.
No, that's my point. What I mean is I think that's the way he intended it, and it didn't come out the right way.
Right. If he intended that, it didn't work.
Like there's different ways to do it, and then I also agree. Like there was things like the Horizon Zero Dawn director tweeted like, "How do they ship a game with this UX? Right? I don't see how it's so successful." And all the Dark Souls fans are
Or,
like, "Your game just sucks, you know." And it's like, I mean, he has a point. Like,
or like some
there's
guy
definitely a
tweeted
point
about
there.
it having a quest log, and people like fucking sent him death threats and shit.
Yeah, people are. I don't think it should have a quest log.
But I mean, yeah, I don't think it should have a quest log either.
Well, we
I
just
think that's
talked
my
about
bias,
how
but-
it should have some sort
It
of
should have
journal or stuff.
something.
Right, which it doesn't.
Like,
And that's all
a
that guy was
quest log
saying.
is different.
No. All this person was
Like-
saying was a UX element that helps you complete
Right.
quests, which it doesn't have at all.
Yeah, I think I mean, or like yeah. There's a bunch of stuff they could do. They could even the map markers like that they had that you could put in were meh.
The marker system, yeah. Like, why not give you
so
the
they're
ability
extremely
to
bare
label
bones.
them yourself?
Why can I
Like,
do custom labels where I can like type in
Right.
a note or something? Right.
Yep.
That stuff's like for me, like that
I
stuff.
think for the people though who do achieve it, it's part of the reason why they feel cool. You
I
know, it's part of
disagree.
that tribal.
No, it's bad design. Like, it's not. It's people
No,
don't.
that's
people
fine that you
don't
think it's bad
No,
design,
no,
but the players
people don't achieve it
online,
though. But people don't.
the players online think it's cool that
No.
they figured it out. That's
But
why
they
they
didn't
send death
figure it
threats.
out. They looked it up. No one figures this shit
Maybe,
out.
yeah,
That's
yeah,
the
yeah.
point. No one.
But the
figures
fact that
this
you
shit
have
out.
to go online and figure out how to do this whatever thing and that it's not obvious, blah blah blah. It's a thing that like several reviews I watched were touting, like
Yeah.
it flies
think-
in the
I think
face
we
of
need
common
to-
UX design principles
we
that are
need
just
to
hand holding us all the way.
Realize
blah, blah, blah.
that we live in the age of the internet, and people are always going to look at the internet for stuff.
I think a
But
game.
that's what the
we're
message
beyond
system.
game-
That's what the message system is there for. It's to give you that opportunity. The point of the
But-
message system is to subvert your need to look stuff up. Like this, it's stupid,
It does to a certain extent.
and it should be all you need. Like, why should you
But
not be able
People,
to?
I'm saying the internet, looking stuff on the internet is not a problem that is only only Dark Souls or Souls likes have. This is a problem that every game has.
I mean, it's
that
the
once-
worst of any game.
I think for me, it's if I'm playing a game and I feel compelled to look at a wiki to finish something, I think that's bad.
I agree.
For me,
100%.
I disagree.
I want to look
actually
at the.
disagree.
So I don't see why that's fun.
Yeah, why is that fun? Why would you not want to be able to figure it out from something in the game? Wouldn't that be more satisfying?
I think
it depends.
I agree with
say it
Josh a little
depends,
bit.
because there's some
little bit.
times that I like the fact that I can look stuff up because it's still part of the game.
But it's not. If it was part of the game, there would be an in-game browser that lets you view the wiki.
For these core things,
Which games have done? Which games have done? Games have had browsers with like glossaries or crowdfunded shit or the ability to view forum shit in the game. If you want people to have to look shit up on a wiki, that's great. That's cool. Design it that way. Give people an option to do it in the game.
No, I like looking up things about a game. I don't know, but this is maybe David's saying in chat that I just have bad opinions. But I like going out of my way and looking up stuff about the game, even outside of the game.
Yeah, it feels cool to like find out information that wasn't obvious to everybody else.
But it is.
It's not even that.
That
It's
doesn't
like
even make
the
sense.
community engagement around stuff.
Like if you figure out something through like community,
But you figured
YouTube
it out
or
already,
something-
and then you go to the wiki, right? I'm talking about looking at the wiki to figure it out.
Right.
No,
Agreed.
well,
Like if
that's
I
what I'm
find an
saying.
item and then I go to the wiki to look at like a stat breakdown or
Being
something.
part of like the segment of the community that finds out secrets is cool.
But you're not part of it. You're literally just looking it up on the wiki, and someone else already figured it out for you. That's not figuring anything out.
I know, but you're participating in the secret club.
You're not
is what it
participating
feels
in
like.
anything. You're just reading text that someone else wrote.
No, you are. I don't care what you say. If it's not in the game, and then you're a part of the little club who's helping figure out things out on the side.
It
makes you
is
feel cool.
in the game. That's the point.
I half agree with Anthony. My point is not that you're helping figure stuff out, but by interacting with the game outside of the game, you build like kind of a community around discourse on the game outside of the game.
So are you telling me you've actually talked to people on the wiki or interacted with them in
Not
any way?
on the wiki,
Exactly.
but like in comment sections and stuff.
So the experience that's similar to like the experience that you're talking about, Josh, is the experience that I actually really did love, but that experience didn't have the wiki, and that was the experience of like me being on a Discord with Skylar and saying, "Hey, I found this door in the wall in Radon's boss arena," and he's like, "Oh, I didn't find," and I honestly found that on the wiki. I saw a Reddit post, but it's like stuff like that saying like, "Oh, Skylar, I found this spell that I think you'll like at the end of this dungeon," and he's like, "Oh shit!" So he does the dungeon, and it's like, "Oh, this spell's awesome, right?"
And those kinds
and then
of
Sean, you'll find I
experiences-
found this ginormous sword over here. I'm like, "Oh shit!"
Those experiences
I'm
could be
going to
implemented.
say-
Hold on, those experiences could be implemented in the game, and that's what the message system's goal is. And they could expand that system to allow for things like this, and for your experiences too, Josh. Right? There could be essentially comments and shit like that in the game. Like this could all exist in the design of the game and still evoke the same feelings.
But I don't spend all of my time in the game. I guess this is part of it. Is like I like to play games even when I'm not playing games to a certain extent, right? So even when I'm not playing, let's say Elden Ring, I might want to look up different builds that different people do when I'm not playing the game and just see what they are.
But looking at builds is different than looking up game specific information.
I think builds. It's well, maybe it's a different thing, but this is kind of more what I'm talking about.
I understand. I know
like
what you're talking about,
looking up
Josh.
different ways to play, different ways that people do things. I mean, even looking up secrets sometimes. Like if I'm not looking up a specific secret, I'm just looking at like if I'm watching a streamer and they find a secret, right? Like it's a different kind. You're not really playing the game, but it is a kind of engagement with the game.
That's watching a streamer discover something is very different than what we're talking about, which is needing to look up information on a wiki. Watching a streamer discover something is very similar to the situation Sean's discussing, which could totally be part of the game.
I think that it's not. Well, this is maybe my opinion, but I think that that's not too far a jump. Because if it's live or if it's not live, what's the difference? There's a difference.
Yeah,
but it's
there's
not
a big
like,
difference.
I think there's a difference, but I don't think that it is not what's the word I'm
Looking
thinking of?
something up on the wiki is like
Inherently
looking at
different.
the solution to a test, whereas watching a streamer do it is like taking the test with your friend and figuring out the answer together.
No, it's like watching somebody else take the test. It's not
That's
doing it
not
together.
the experience you feel when you're watching a streamer. You feel like you're
That's
in a community.
true,
Yeah, that's what
but
I'm saying. It's the
I
community
agree with that.
experience that is valuable.
I agree with that, but I also think that it's not too far of a jump.
To me, it's a very big jump personally, but I totally respect that you don't feel that way. But yeah, I just think these things are all accomplishable within the confines of the game. Like, just to give an example, Tunic, which is I'm currently playing, has all of these obscure secrets, all of these obscure quests, all of these obscure things you have to do, very similar to Elden Ring, and all of it is discoverable through the manual that you can slowly discover and try and decipher the pictures and everything that you have to do. And it's all in the game, and it gives the exact same feeling, and you never have to leave the game.
I think my only point to say is like, so I feel you, Josh. I'm the kind of person where when I'm super interested in the game, I'm playing it. If I'm like at work and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna look up this kind of game. And I think it's not. I think it's maybe it's Souls-likes too in general, but it's like I'm playing a roguelike right now. I don't need to look up all the weapons in the game because they're all on a list in the game. I can look at all of them even if I haven't unlocked them. But in Elden Ring, the only list of all the weapons is either in your inventory because you have them or on the wiki.
Right. I
Which
just think
pushes
like
me towards that.
these are like I think these are takes where if this stuff was in the game, people would enjoy it more, and because that's not an option, people think they enjoy this kind of thing. But just because I've played so many games, I've experienced games that have done this in the game, and it's such a more interesting experience. And I look shit up for games all the time too, but it's not like trying to figure out how to play the game, right? It's like, oh, this is a cool thing you can do in the game, or this is some cool, unique, obscure secret. Not like, how do I finish a normal side quest in the game I'm playing? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I'm like, to be clear, having the internet doesn't excuse you just like being ass in some regards of design. I just also think like the Minecraft not having a recipe book for potions and then adding it later, when it didn't have one, when the games don't explicitly tell you how to do something, there's an aspect of, if like, I think along the lines of a mastery that you can feel like I somehow was able to obtain the information necessary to do this, whether it is going outside of the game to look up the wiki, whether it is some stupid forum thing. Like, you feel cool, to some people feel cool from being able to do that. You know what I mean?
I agree. In
And
the game, in Minecraft, figuring out how to craft a potion is cool. And like, when Minecraft first came out, it didn't even tell you. When Minecraft first came out, it didn't even tell you the crafting recipes. You didn't even know how to make a pickaxe. And figuring that stuff out was really cool. But at the same
and then
time,
when it was introduced on the recipe book, some people felt like that was not as meaningful anymore, because now everybody like had that information easily accessible.
Right, but
you know
that
what I
is
mean?
like, that is a to be completely honest, that is a selfish mindset, right? And like, you can still have that experience yourself while it's still accessible to other people, right? You have full control over your own experience. If you don't want to look up any crafting recipes, you don't have to. And to say that like other people shouldn't be allowed to look up those crafting recipes in the in-game book or whatever is fucked up. Right? That's just like selfish. That's like being like, I'm better than other people, so since I'm in the tribe, these people shouldn't be able to have a positive experience.
As bad as this sounds, I kind of disagree, because I think it has to do with target audience a little bit, and not all games are designed for the same target audience. I'm not saying that.
That's where my head went, but
that's a good transition, Josh, into my next topic, which is who should play Elden Ring and who is it for? What do you think?
Who do you think they made it for?
Josh, let us know.
Who do I think they made it for?
Because we were about to talk about target audience.
I think they did make this, at least for in an attempt to make it for a more casual audience. I think they did.
Right. So in a game that's for a more casual audience, don't you think these kinds of like the things we're talking about, if you're directing towards a more accessible audience, shouldn't you be making these design decisions that make the game more accessible?
I would like to clarify that I do not disagree with basically any of the things you've said. What was I saying?
Your perspective?
my perspective, I guess, was that FromSoft just isn't used to making a game that appeals to the casual audience. So they did what they usually do and tried to make it for a casual audience. I think it was a good first try. Honestly, it is a huge step from Dark Souls 1. I know that's a while ago, but it is a huge leap in improvement. I think that the next game they come out with will probably, if it is continues on the trend of being for a more, broad audience, it will continue to kind of be more in that direction.
I don't know. I'm so back and forth because I hate some of the UX too. But I think the second they add a quest log where I talk to an NPC and it tells me to go to a specific place, fuck FromSoft, right? I think like there's no way. Like I mean the brand is so well known. I mean, at least for me. I mean, I'll speak for myself. I'm not playing Elden Ring for story and side quests, right? I'm playing it for boss fights, cool worlds, and like varied builds.
But you still
right?
completed every side quest, or you looked up and completed
did.
like the majority of the side quests, right?
Right, but I don't do it for the side quests. I mean, I do Ronnie's quest lines because there's like five bosses
I
behind
see.
it.
Okay.
Right.
But then
And,
why?
like,
So like,
certain
wouldn't it be
items.
better? So why would you really be mad if like you went and talked to Ronnie in the tower, and she was like, "You need to go." Or this is a bad example. Let's say you went and talked to some random Alexander, and he was like, "I'll be at this place," and he
No,
said
I think
the
that's
name.
perfect.
So and then
no, that's the
and
point
then
I
you
meant.
had a log
It's-
that said he
it's-
said that place. That's a
Yeah,
quest
I don't
log.
like that.
No, yeah.
Wait.
Yeah,
So
I
the
hate
fact.
So I think there's
wait.
middle
Hold on.
ground here.
I need to let me finish
think
this
there's middle
conversation
ground.
with Sean. So you think that there is a bad difference for you? The difference between like Alexander saying, "Hey, I will be at the castle," and you having a note in your menu that was a journal that said Alexander said he would be at the castle. There's like a bad
No, you're
difference
right.
between
No,
those
I'm
things?
thinking when I think of the problem I'm having, the disconnect is just when someone says quest log, I'm thinking of like, oh god,
World
it's
of
fucking
Warcraft?
Warcraft quest log on my screen. Like I hate it. But no, you're right. So it's
Yeah.
just, I guess I would call it a minimalist.
Like what
quest
I'm saying is
log
there would just
or
be like a menu of
whatever.
all the characters you've talked
Mm-hmm.
to that have quests, and you could just look at what they've said.
Yeah.
And
Let's
they would
not
just
call it a quest
If
log.
they-
Let's call it a quest journal.
Yeah,
Yeah,
journal. I
that's
mean, if they
fine,
don't
yeah.
change though, but if they don't change like the cryptic dialogue and stuff, like is that still gonna be? Is
no,
that gonna
right.
be
That it
enjoyable?
requires
will make
those
a
two
huge
things.
difference.
Yeah, it
Right,
requires
'cause then it'll
cryptid
still
dialogue.
be, I'm going here because this guy's trying to do a thing. I don't even know what Alexander was doing,
Right.
He went
for
to
his
the
quest line,
Raton
right?
Festival.
Well, he did that, but I don't know what his purpose. He was trying to become a strong warrior or something, but without that, it's
I
like
think that was kind of it, right? I mean, I didn't finish his quest line either, though. So what do I know?
Right.
I don't know. I mean, it's like the thing I'm thinking of is like when people say play Sekiro and they're like, "This game's too hard. It needs an easy mode." I'm like, "This game's too hard. It's not for you. Stop trying to force yourself to play it." Right? I think is my thing. If you're like, I want a game with a quest log and a cohesive story, go play The Witcher 3. I think that's kind of my opinion on it. Historically the games just they're all the same. None of them have had any of.
Right, but the second you appeal
So-
to history, you're like that's a logical fallacy, right? Like just because it's been that way doesn't mean it needs to continue being that way.
I don't know. It's like if I play Street Fighter and I'm like, this game has too many combos, they should make a version where the combos are just mashing buttons.
But
It's like, well, then
there
why
are
am I
fighting
playing
games
Street
that are
Fighter? I
like
should play
that.
a different fighting game.
They have
There's
done
a
that.
million
though.
third person action adventure games that have all the stuff people want.
I half agree. So I think that to an extent, a game is developed for a specific audience. If you're outside the audience, it kind of sucks, but yeah, the game wasn't made for you.
Right. I feel like if you try to make a game for everybody, then you end up making a game for nobody.
On the other hand,
I agree with that.
it is
for
also
fucking sure.
that is the company's
Right.
decision if they want to make a game that's for a specific audience or they want to broaden to a more general audience, which I do feel like is what FromSoft is trying to do here. And in that case, the hardcore audience gets swapped out and is told this game isn't for you now. Go find a hard game again. Go
And
play
that's
Dark
that's
Souls 1.
fine, right? And that's
And
totally fine. If they make a game that I don't like, then
this
that's
is what
fine.
I'm saying, right? Like, he who lives by the sword dies by the sword, right? If you are making if you agree with the argument that games are made for specific audiences, and if the game is not made for your audience, that's too bad. Then you also have to be okay with when the audience isn't you.
Right.
No, yeah, I understand that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense.
Right. Well,
I
and
mean,
that's what we
from
were
the
saying, right?
outside-
Elden Ring was very clearly an attempt to make a game that was both for FromSoft veterans
Right.
and for at least people on the fringe
Wider.
of FromSoft games who wanted to start participating, right? And I think it succeeded at doing that, but it was a fine line between like that and a lot of things that could have been a lot better, right? And hopefully, like Josh said, and will be better in the future, and like Sean said, hopefully it's the engine that caused a lot of these problems, and with an engine improvement and this experience, they can make a game that's much closer to being like satisfying for all of this, right?
Yeah, there's no chance after experiencing the financial success of the benefits of a slightly more accessible game that they're not going to keep that in mind in the next
You would
one.
think so.
I guess I wonder too. It's
But-
like this game didn't
yeah.
have the good quest system and stuff, but it sold a fuck ton. So why should what does the next game need it for them?
Yeah,
I mean,
but,
it depends on what
again,
feedback
to
they're
your
listening
point,
to.
2019, you start development with realizing the fucking huge, enormous scope of this game. Quite possibly, I could see it being like they're in development and they're like, what do we prioritize? Do we prioritize like reworking potentially some of this engine bullshit that we need to rework in order to support like a better system in game for
Right. There's
blah, blah, blah,
no
blah, blah?
no chance they're altering the engine for this game. Like,
Right.
yeah.
Or slash they might just have in mind our particular audience has an expectation of some bullshittery. So while it's not good, let's prioritize focusing on whatever the encounters in the boss in the late part, because that's what we have time to focus on instead of like reworking the shit. Like it could just be a matter of circumstance. Like they would have liked to do this stuff. They didn't
Yeah,
get a
but I don't
chance.
know. I don't like excuses like that, right? Like they could have just
Right.
released the game a year later. Like their games do plenty good.
I think the big thing is we're going to see what their
Yeah,
next game is going to be,
technically.
and I think that's all the indication.
No, right. Yeah, I think a
It's
lot.
not
I've heard,
is
like
gonna
they
be.
can't do both.
You
You
can't
know, they can make
indefinitely
one
delay
game
games
for
forever
one-
either. We don't know. They might have
Yeah.
Bandai might have given them some fucking budget and they couldn't
Right.
delay.
but
Who
like
knows?
I don't know. I'm not. You know me. I'm fully against business deciding any aspect of design. But I know it's a
I
reality.
mean, that's the reality. Yeah.
but that. But
Sekiro 2, baby.
to me, it's like they make fuck tons of money on their games. They're not having these kinds of problems. in
And
my
they pay
mind.
their employees 30K a week,
Yeah.
and they work 80-hour weeks.
Yeah, they don't pay their employees shit. They don't do any of that. Like they're not a good company. They should be.
FromSoft
They
is-
don't
is
get my.
actually-
They don't get my sympathy.
No, I'm just saying that could be why we didn't get to see some of the stuff we didn't get to see. So there's a reality behind it. But yeah, it will be interesting. I can't imagine they back off on some of these more accessible ideas.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's clear to me
for
that they're going to
Elden
do
Ring 2.
2 or 3 DLCs for Elden Ring because the game is fucking massive.
Right.
And I personally think they're going to be like, we're going a direction where we're doing some new shit.
It would be nice if
So-
they went like away. Well, yeah, it's interesting.
It's rumored that they're working on Armored Core, which is their franchise they did before the Souls games,
Right.
Oh,
Which
shit.
would be really interesting.
That would be
played
which is
Armored
their
Core.
third-person mech shooter game.
Yeah,
so
that shit was the fucking shit. I played that
It's old,
shit
yeah.
out of it. Yeah.
All
That's
right,
the
so
rumor that there's.
We're gonna wrap this up just because we're only an hour over time.
Almost
Past
2
my
hours, yeah.
bedtime. Yeah.
But what the last thing I want to talk about, we're gonna skip everything, but we will say the last thing is our bets on if Anthony will ever beat Margit, and if so, when. So I will bet yes, and I will predict that he will beat Margit in January 2023.
January 2023. Okay.
That's a while.
I mean, it's doable. I actually was.
Hold on,
Just
let the
go
other
the
people
rounds,
bet. Wait,
just
wait.
grind it
Don't,
out.
don't influence the bets yet, Anthony. Let them give their bets.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to put my bet on Anthony is not going to beat Margit, and here's why. Because if we all vote that he's gonna beat Margit, he might get a little
Motivated.
Don't you want to
no,
motivate
if we all
Anthony?
think that you're going to do it, you might get a little comfortable, right? So I have to vote against. So that way you have like
so he has
motivation
to
prove
prove
me
you
wrong.
wrong. Hey,
Yeah.
Josh with that good psychology. Evan in the chat giving him a 30% chance that he'll beat him.
Yeah, I don't think Anthony's good enough to do it.
Ooh.
They are really trying to motivate me here to
Uh-oh.
actually do it. I'll be honest, you guys have more confidence than I do in myself. I'm thinking like maybe spring. The thing is, the key thing for this game for me to get through Margit, okay, is going to be whether like I'm already a little bit in danger. The time lapse between sessions has got to be tighter,
Right.
because
Yes.
the longer time
The longer
goes
you
on,
wait, you're just going to be playing the game for the first time every
No,
time.
yeah, you got it. Yeah, you
Exactly.
got to like commit to like a month of playing it like twice a week or something.
or bare minimum at least once a week.
Right.
It's hard
Anthony,
sometimes
your
to even
chances
play-
increase double if you re-roll your character as like bandit or something.
Actually, you should. Actually,
Yeah.
the first thing you should do
I
is start
serious,
over
yeah.
as a samurai or a bandit for sure.
Yeah,
And just
yeah,
not worry
I think I
about
will.
the wretch thing.
I think I
that'll,
will.
Yeah.
and I think your enjoyment will also just be
It'll
way
be
more
so
fun.
much better.
Just the fact
You don't have to
that
worry
you
about
have
the fucking
armor.
armor and the bullshit. You can just play your class.
Starting
and
as
you can use the
astrologer
weapon
was
that
like
you
the best
have.
shit. I like
Yeah.
you get because if you know what build, that's what the classes
Starting
are
as
for.
a who?
Astrologer is the main
astrologer.
class. So like the thing is like
But I
the,
can't fight. Yeah.
No. I'm saying
With
you
daggers.
shouldn't be an astrologer. But what I'm saying is that the
bandit.
class system is there for if you know exactly what build you want. Those classes basically just give you a head start on that build, so you can start playing the game immediately at the beginning the way you want to.
Yeah, I kind of don't mind that I was wretched for 2 hours because I got some kind of a vibe on everything.
Yeah.
But it was like I finished thinking like I want, what was it, dexterity or whatever.
Right, you're
the
like,
fuck
I
it
want to
is.
play with the
8
dagger.
levels.
I want to, yeah, exactly.
You need
Yeah,
8
I want a
levels to use the
dagger.
weapon you want, where the bandit you can use it from the gate.
Immediately.
Right?
Yeah, definitely
Minute
gonna
one.
do that. Definitely gonna do
Yeah.
that.
And
all
you have
right.
armor, so you'll take way less damage.
So
right?
tune in for Anthony's Elden Ring playthrough in spring. That's soon.
In 8 minutes.
And last thing is scale of 1 to 10, numbered score for Elden Ring. 1 being one of the worst games you've ever played, and a 10 being one of the best games you've ever played. Starting with Josh.
Kind of tough.
I can
Space
start actually.
Dust.
I know
I
my
think-
answer if you want me to start. If you
Go
want to
ahead,
think.
yeah.
Okay, so I rate Elden Ring an 8.5. It is very high on my list of games I've ever played. I think it's amazing. I think everyone should try it, but only if they have a friend who has played it who can explain all the bullshit to them. If they have that, I think anyone will enjoy Elden Ring if they enjoy video games, like action video games at all, as long as they have someone to explain the game to them. And that's the difference between it being an 8.5 and a 10. If it had the UX and UI required for someone to have a streamlined experience without any outside influence, it would be a 10 for sure for me. But it gets 8.5. Maybe it'll go down to an 8. I think more likely it'll go to an 8 than a 9.
All right, I think I got mine. I'm going to be a hater, and I'm going to give it a 7.9.
Wow.
I'm going to give it 0.1 shy of an 8 because of my Souls boomer.
Right.
Because it wasn't Dark Souls 3 again.
It wasn't Dark Souls
Dark
3.5.
Souls 4 a little bit newer.
You mean Dark Souls 2 again? That's what you want.
Sean wants that Demon Souls consumable health, a limited health item shit again.
Demon Souls sucks. Dude, the games suck and I love them. I don't know what you want from me.
I mean,
Okay.
that's one thing I love about Sean is that even though he loves them, he will freely admit when things
My
are
personal
stupid.
thing is like
Is
when
there a correlation between being passionate about documentation and liking Souls games? There might
probably
be.
I hate documentation.
I don't
But
know.
I
What,
don't want-
you're
Yeah,
just
No, he's
It's
not. Sean said he likes doing the
when
cleanup work, not the documentation part of it. He likes doing the
correct.
actual
The documentation sucks, but I'll do the dirty work. The thing
yeah.
about my last point that I think I forgot.
Perfect. That makes sense. All right, Josh.
Oh wait, no, sorry.
Josh.
When the reviewers,
Yeah.
when the game came out and the reviewers were all like, "This is the best game I've ever played, the best game of all time." 10 out of 10. I was after beating it, I was like, "These guys are fucking high." Like it was a good game, but the best game ever made? No way.
No way.
Like there's no way, right? This game has been made 4 times already. It's not the best game of all time.
Yeah, the
No
crazy
way.
thing is
Right.
me thinking Elden Ring was new. All these systems were new to me. I was like, wow, these are amazing, cool concepts. And then Sean's like, actually, this exact thing is like every single thing in Elden Ring has been in almost everything
Dark Souls 3
has been
did
in
all
Dark
of them.
Souls 3.
It's just all besides crafting.
Right.
Everything else is an expanded version of a previous game,
Of an
which is fine.
right.
But like, yeah, it's just when people, I mean, then people were jerking it off, right? And I was just like, let's, it's a good game, but let's chill.
Yeah, I will
bit,
say
right?
just one more hot take before Josh gives his score. There's like, I think at this point I'm at like a 90% chance that Tunic will be a higher rated game for me than Elden Ring, and Tunic is also a Souls-like. So
we'll see. I'm excited for 2022 Game of the Year.
Yeah, that'll be our Game of the Year podcast this year is going to be a banger.
It's gonna be good.
All right, Josh, what do you got for us?
I really would like to give it a 10, but when I compare it to other games that I consider 10s, so like,
It's not a 10.
I liked the open world in Breath of the Wild. I would say I like the open world in Breath of the Wild better. I think that from like a, getting lost and boss fights perspective, I think I liked Hollow Knight better. Those are like my two like 10 games that like I like that in terms of like things that I can try directly compare to, because also, I mean, Persona 4 is up there, and that's not comparable at all, right? So I would have to say I go give it a 9, because I don't think it quite it doesn't meet the level of those two games in my mind.
That's still high.
Specifically, I think that the combat is like really good, right? But I don't think that like the thing that I enjoyed most about it was more enjoyable than the things I enjoyed most about the games in my 10s.
There you go. 9 for Josh. And Anthony, once you beat Margit, you will be able to give your score on a podcast.
Yeah, my 2-hour score right now is like no fucking way I ever play this game.
Right, yeah.
It's not. This is not a game for me.
Margit, I told Anthony before. I said I bet and this is a bet I'm willing to make. I think if Anthony beats Margit, there is a more than 50% chance he will then go on to beat the game.
Possible.
Just
damn.
By then,
I think the beginning of the game will be the most difficult part for Anthony.
So I mean, that's what I'm saying. I think if he can get through Margit, he may actually be at the point where he'll want to play. Because I saw the spark on Anthony's stream, the spark of actually really loving this game. So
it's like it's like hidden. Yeah, it's some poop. It's buried under some poop.
Yep.
I'll be very curious to see restarting with Bandit if it facilitates a little bit of what it's just like how I was playing right there is, at least so far, very little time, my natural instincts were getting blocked by like stuff.
And that's what I mean. I think once you beat Margit, your instincts will be they'll have to be the right ones, right? So
right to beat them. Yeah, right. We'll see.
We'll see. Yeah, I think it'll be interesting. Anyway, we'll save any quality time questions, which I don't think we have anyway, for next time. So
there was one that's like "Ooba dooba dooba."
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Literally the question.
It didn't even have a question mark. So
if you have stuck around this long,
find
thank
us,
you so much,
Anthony.
You can find us at koalaentertainment.com. I will literally not take up any more of your time than that. You can get Discord links there. Most importantly, you can get links to Agora. You can wishlist it. Would be extremely helpful. It's our game that we've like barely told anybody about, but we still give a wishlist link because it would be cool. We are very excited. There's a decent chance you might see more this year.
I would say this year, probably a very high chance.
I should hope we'll see more.
Right.
So get excited. There's also links to our social media. We do Discord. We do giveaways everywhere. Come check it out. koalaentertainment.com. Until next time.
All right. Thank you all for listening. We'll be back on a more regular podcast schedule, hopefully. Anthony and I will be back talking about some non-Elden Ring shit next week.
First development priorities and traveling.
Yep. But thank you all for supporting us. As always, love you all.
See you.
Bye.